What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC 297. We got Sean Strickland going against Dricus Du Plessis. We have a card that is in Canada with a lot of Canadians on it and a lot of really good fights. I'm looking forward to this card. Another 12-fight card here, 12 very good fights. A really good main event, Sean Strickland, Dricus Du Plessis. I think I'm looking forward to the press conference just as much as I am the fight. But yeah, the fight's going to be awesome. The press conference, the build-up's going to be awesome. And I think this is a very, very good card here this week. So, Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to UFC 297?
Yeah, man, we got to enjoy it because we're going to have a week off again right after this, so we got teased a little bit here, a little 2-week stretch of UFC, 1 week off. But then the good news is for you guys that aren't content creators, then we're going to, I think, have a 12-week stretch at least coming up starting in February all the way to April. So we're going to have plenty of UFC action to talk about this year, but we're going to have to savor this week because we're going to have another week off after this. But people are playing football right now, Brady. I don't know if you know that, but like the real ones, they're here live watching Stat Diggers because they're more interested in the UFC than they are in the NFL. And we're here to talk about it today. And I'm looking forward to breaking down all of these fights so that we can all find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks, make these bookies cry.
Yeah, people are enjoying the Cowboys and Packers game. Packers are up like 48 to like 13. Last time I did something crazy, 48 to 16. It's crazy. So looking forward to breaking down fights. So yeah, appreciate everybody that has stopped by. I know football is going on, playoff football, all that good stuff. But we're here to break down some fights. Going to do a quick recap of last night. I will kick us off, and it's a frustrating week for me, Weezy, because I had no bets all week. Like all week, I was like, I hate this card. All these lines are blown out. I ended up betting on Manel Kopp inside the distance, I think on Thursday, and that was my only bet. And then I was trying to finalize my bets, I think like late Friday night, like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I placed, I think, 5 or 6 bets. So it kept it relatively light, but I probably should have kept it lighter and had no action on this card. My favorite spot on the card was Waldo Cortez Acosta by knockout. 1.5 units minus 155. And, as we joke around and say, sometimes Weezy, we say it's never our fault. It's always the fighter's fault.
Yes.
This time I actually feel like it's literally his fault. Like, how do you not knock this guy out? But he went in there, he did the salsa dance. And right when he did that salsa dance, Weezy, I knew that ticket was getting ripped up. So terrible performance from Waldo Cortez Acosta, having a competitive fight with 45-year-old Andrei Arlovsky, and rip up my most confident play, to be honest. So that was not good. I had the Semmelsberger Preston Parsons under 2.5, and then Semmelsberger KO 1, 1 unit on the under, and then half a unit on the KO 1. And to my surprise, Semmelsberger was willingly grappling with Parsons, pushing him against the cage, even took him down, jumped Gilly 2 times in that fight. Just mind-blowing performance from one Matthew Semmelsberger. Stafford's playing tonight, but yeah, Semmelsberger went out there and, fought the game plan. He did like the opposite of what he should have done. He should have stuffed the takedowns, kept it at range, and tried to have some success in the striking. And Parsons did almost sub him a couple times. So the under was like close. I didn't hate the bet, but it didn't hit regardless. Another L on the sheet. And my only winning bet of the night was Gene Silva, Weston Wilson fight won't start round 2. Got it on Bet Rivers minus 152. That was the best price out there by a mile. Put a unit on it. And then I think I had Jim Miller to win in rounds 1 or rounds 2 at plus 175. And it's pretty much sums up the night. Jim Miller goes out there and gets his first 3rd round finish since 2008. So could not buy a win last night. Kept it light at least, but could have kept it even lighter with no bets. But, it is what it is. Starting the year off with an L. But we have like 44 cards left, so nothing to really be too upset about. But tough card last night. A lot of people did not do well, and it was a tough card because you know why it was tough. Everything was juiced, and when everything is juiced, you have to be so right. And if you're wrong on just a couple things, like that can ruin your night. So yeah, juicy card this week is completely different. Like we don't have minus 1,000 favorites. We don't have minus 1,600 fight doesn't go to decision. I mean, it was so stupid last week, but I feel like if the card last night was like during the year, I would have had 0 bets, but I didn't place a UFC bet for like a month, so I felt kind of like I had to, you know what I mean? So stupid mistakes, and gotta clean it up, but have a lot of year left. Weezy, how was your night last night?
Yeah, Brady, you may not have had a great night gambling last night, but you were an absolute star on Twitter with the how ass is Waldo Cortez Acosta, how ass is Matt Semmelsberger. That was absolute. I was just crying and retweeting every time. That's ass. And you said it right, because we hadn't seen a card in so long. So everything that was kind of like blatantly obvious, was juice to the tits or juice to the ass, like the girl in that photo, I mean, juiced, okay, like kapow, right? Oh my God, some of these lines, Hawes fight doesn't go to decision, opening at minus 1,400. Gene Silva fight doesn't go to decision, opening at minus 1,800. Ankalaev doesn't go to decision, opening at minus 1,000. So we kind of fell into the trap of like being cappers who look for value, and really the only value to be had was on fighters that were going to get their ass shaved. It's like, I got some value. How about Weston Wilson by first round submission at plus 2,800?
Yes.
That value, did it cash? Hell no. But that was really my day, because I thought Felipe Bunis had a path. He's taller, he's longer, he's more experienced, he's fought the better guys, he's without question the better grappler, and he goes out there and he outstrikes Josh Van in the first round. And Josh Van tries for a couple of silly leg locks on a BJJ black belt. I had a Bunis by submission ticket too, and after round one, I was feeling pretty good about myself, and then round two started, Brady. It all fell apart like a Chinese motorcycle. And there goes a unit, 0.75 units on the Bunis money line, 0.25 units on the Bunis sub prop. But I did have over 0.5 takedowns, which you can't track for a big bet. So I actually made money on that fight. But yeah, the losses for me were the Bunis money line. I had Basharat quarter unit to win by split decision. He won by 30-27 unanimous decision. I had the Weston Wilson 1/10 of a unit on the sub prop. Why not? The Preston Parsons by submission at plus 380 was a good bet.
Close. Yeah,
very, very close, but it didn't cash. That's going to happen sometimes. And then a bet that I wanted all week, Lapalus plus 3.5 points, didn't cash. But like I was saying, I feel like I should get this at plus 140, plus 150. And then it opens at plus 120 and immediately goes to minus 115, And I just sat there all week going, I'm not paying that price. I'm not paying it. Fuck them. I'm not paying it, right? And then on fight day, I finally was like, you know what? They're giving me plus money. I'm just going to parlay it with Waldo Cortez Acosta. So I did that, which was probably my worst bet of the week. Is the fact that I had that bum in a parlay because that was a piss poor performance. He played with his food out there. He completely showed a ton of respect to a guy that deserves respect for his resume, but not for his current resume. The fact that Dante O'Mays knocked this man out and you didn't, Waldo Cortez Acosta, you should be ashamed of yourself. How ass is Waldo Cortez Acosta, ladies and gentlemen? Look at the picture above my head. That's how ass Waldo Cortez Acosta is. So, yeah, man, down 1.54 units. The only thing I can be proud about, Brady, was that I did exercise good bankroll management. Because all those lines were juiced to the tits and there was nothing worth betting, I only wagered 3.6 units. The winning bet was the over 2.5 rounds for Lapalus Basharat, parlayed with the under 2.5 rounds in the McGee Bolaños fight at plus 106. So that hits for 1.06 unit. Everything else is a loss, down 1.54 units to start the year. And now, we can settle in. We're going to have a lot of UFC action to bet on over the next few months. And I'm looking to start to string together some wins here, stack some winning events like flapjacks.
Yes, sir. Yeah, somebody. I always get ridiculous comments on my YouTube channel, but this one stuck out to me. He said that basically that the Waldo Cortez Acosta knockout bet was square, which I agree. I think that was a super square dumb bet. I agree with that. But he also said there's no way I'm a long-term winning gambler. But I'm literally third party
You
track.
literally are posted on Bet MMA
Yeah.
tips. People can see, a bet history. For how long have you been tracking Brady?
I think it's my fifth or sixth. I think sixth year.
And that's no easy task, man. Because it's not like you haven't taken bad beat after bad beat after bad beat like all of us gamblers do in the long term. So yeah, man, it's a ridiculous comment, but it was a tough event, man. You really couldn't find value out there. And guess who made money, Brady? The square bettors. The square bettors who are like, I'm parlaying, fight doesn't go to decision, and the Wilson fight, the Hawes fight, the Ferreira, the Hawes Ferreira fight, all these fights, the McGee Bolaños fight, the Nolan Moda fight, we all knew that they just couldn't get any value on it. But the square parlay bettors who bet favorites and who bet juiced violence lines, they came out smelling like a rose.
Besides the Nolan parlayers.
Yeah, the Nolan parlayers didn't get it, but everybody knew that Moda was going to be dangerous early, and Nolan looked great. He really did. But all it takes is one from Moda. We told everybody that, but I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't bet that, because first round knockout for Moda had to be something like plus 800 or something, and the fact that I wasn't on that, I should be ashamed of myself.
Yeah, I looked right at it, plus 750, looked me right in the eyes, but didn't pull the trigger. We talked about it. We were like, why is this guy minus 350? But it is what it is. That was a missed opportunity. I thought another missed opportunity was just not betting Bruno Ferreira first round knockout. I think that was a very likely outcome. I think Phil Hawes is probably done. So, yeah, so it's a missed opportunity.
You just feel square. You just feel square betting that shit. You're like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm fading Phil Hawes' chin, and then you feel like a square because it seems like whenever you do that, it's like, oh my God, he absorbed like 14 huge punches and didn't go down this time, It's like I remember fading Marcin Prachnio's chin against Khalil Roundtree.
Same.
When and you sit there for 3 rounds going, this can only happen to me. And of course it happened to everybody that faded Khalil or that faded Prachnio, coming off of 3 straight first round knockouts. And then they feed him to Khalil Roundtree.
So
he goes 3 rounds
and loses.
Yeah, I know he loses too. Yeah, Khalil loses the fight. Crazy. It's a crazy sport that we bet on. But we'll be back this week, baby. Let's break it down. Let's find the angles. Let's look at these stats, and we're gonna get it back this week, Brady.
Absolutely. Bettable lines this week, which is nice. Bettable lines.
Close fights.
Yes, close fights, bettable lines, and that's where we make our money. I'm not a big juice guy anymore. I used to be, kind of, but I'm plus money guy now, I think. All right, we'll shout out the chat before we get started. We got Elijah1, first one in the building. What is up? Elijah1 saying Team Canada. Yeah, last time there was a card in Canada. I think it was 289 last year. All the Canadians won. I think they went either 6-0 or 7-0. This week we have, I think, like a ton of Canadians. It was like 8 Canadians on this card. It's a ton. Let's count.
Yeah. And they've just, the Canadians have been white hot in Canada. They're just winning fight after fight. So we're going to have to see if that trend continues.
9 Canadians. Holy crap.
Yeah.
There we go.
Parlaying all the Canadians on a Canadian card has been so plus EV, Brady.
It was last time. This time I worry about a couple Canadians, but we'll talk about it. We got Mushroom in the building, as always, Mr. Drail. We got Bob in the chat, Randy Fowler. We got Lou Sasshole, which, by the way, Lou, your Twitter game is it's I don't know how to explain it, but I think the word is shocking. I mean, some of these posts you have are just shocking, but
edgy. I would use the word edgy.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, I enjoy it, but some of these posts are edgy. Edgy is a good word. Snerius in the building. We got Justin Vallejos, Melon in the building as well. Pickle Kush. We got Bob Spikerman, D-Gen for life. And you did tell me, Usman. You did tell me. But I did pick the Packers to beat the Cowboys, so that's something I got right. So yeah, I'm 1-1, or 2-1. I picked the Chiefs as well in my playoff picks. But yeah, the Browns just that was hard to watch. Just added to my terrible Saturday. I had to sit there, watch the Browns crap the bed Weezy, and I had to watch my bets crap the bed And then the baby crapped a couple times, had to change the everybody's crapping yesterday. Waldo Cortez Acosta just crapping shit all over the octagon on Saturday. It was did you boys say edging? You're a character, Lou. You're a character.
Once again, just proving what we already said about the man's Twitter game. Edgy, controversial, shocking. It's all there when you go to our Italian friend Lou Sassoli. I'm not going to actually say it. I'm just going to call him Lou Sassoli, like the G-rated version of what this man's name is. And let me just tell you a little bit of a Chicago story. To anybody that lives down south, don't ever move up here. I went to go run a quick errand today. Went out to my Jeep to get in my car. Couldn't even open the driver's side door, right? Because it's frozen shut. It is freezing cold here in Chicago, right? So then I go around to the passenger side, and it takes me a minute, but I finally get it open, right? So then I crawl across to the driver's seat, turn the car on. Yeah, man, it's not starting. It's that cold. And then so I'm like, fuck, I can't go to the goddamn grocery store. So then I go to leave the Jeep. Now the door won't close because the locking mechanism is frozen solid. And so now my door is just sitting open. Can't even close it. Battery died. Yeah, welcome to Chicago. Welcome to the freezing cold weather. I'm moving south, Brady. I've had enough of this shit.
What the heck? I mean, I thought it was cold here. It's like 6 degrees here, but he says like -2 in Chicago. My gosh.
It's going to be -11 tonight. God help us.
Oh, help us all. So yeah, today I got all my shopping done for the week, so I'm not going out for the next couple days. I hate the cold. I want to move to like Florida. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, my dad did that a few years ago. He always laughs his ass off whenever I complain about the weather up here, man.
I feel like everybody in Florida is laughing
enjoy
their ass
it.
off. I feel like it's a Florida thing just to laugh their ass off at everybody up here. But
yeah, I'm complaining about the weather, and he's on the cell phone at the golf course on the 16th hole. And he's having a great game. I'm like, man, you got this right.
Let's go. Hopefully he's not cheating on the golf course, Weezy, because the first fight
what a segue
of UFC, best segue of all time, of UFC 297 is Jasmine Yazoo DeVicious going against Priscilla Kesha Cheating. We got Jasmine Yazoo DeVicious, 34 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. We got Priscilla Kesha Cheating, 35 years old, 5'7", with a 65-inch reach. Yazoo DeVicious, 34 years old, 1 year younger. Same height, and then she's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Yazoo DeVicious, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, makes her debut, I believe, against Kate Hansen, wins that fight by decision, loses to Natalia Silva by decision, beats Gabriela Fernandez by decision, Miranda Maverick by decision. That was in Canada as well, an upset win. And then she loses a very close fight to Tracy Cortez. Nothing wrong with that performance. I thought she fought very well. I had a bet on Cortez, and I thought it was, fairly close. As far as Kesha Cheating, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She knocked out Gina Mazzani. That was an awesome fight. She got submitted by Jillian Robertson. She beats Ji-Young Kim by decision. She knocks out Ariana Lipsky, and then she loses by submission against Miranda Maverick. So the reason I'm going by Priscilla Kesha Cheating, Weezy, is because she is turned into, she's always been a little bit of a cheater, but recently she is cheating her ass off. I think it all started with that Jillian Robertson fight where first off, she missed weight by like 3 or 4 pounds. That's one cheat on the cheat board. And then she's gouging Jillian Robertson's eyes out when Jillian's going for, I think, a rear naked choke, just gouging her eyes out. The ref's looking right. I'm not sure what the ref is doing. I think it was Chris Tione. The ref's doing nothing about it. But yeah, Jillian has like fingers in her eyes. So there's a big cheat there. And then I was watching the Maverick fight back. I mean, she had to have cheated like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. She was pulling Maverick's shirt off. There was almost a wardrobe malfunction because of Priscilla Cachoeira. Her gloves were like in her shirt there. She was grabbing the cage with her toes, with her fingers. She was just cheating nonstop in that fight. So I think the point deduction prop is like a must for this fight. I don't think I can bet it where I'm at, but 20-1 for a Priscilla Kesha Cheating point deduction prop. I'm going to see if I can find it. I haven't seen it on DraftKings lately, but I think it's almost a shoe-in to happen here because she just cheats so much. But yeah, this is a terrible matchup for Priscilla Cachoeira. And, if I was a matchmaker, I would give her like another striker because whenever she's against another striker, she's in some fun and exciting fights. But she's going against a wrestler here in Jazz DeVicious, and that's kind of the kryptonite of Cachoeira. So Jasvich should have no problem getting fights down to the mat here, controlling Cachoeira, and probably just grinding out an easy 30-27 as long as the gas tank holds up, which it should. Jasmine should win, but she's a minus 400 favorite, so it is what it is. But give me Jasmine here. Jasmine probably by decision, and I'm looking at like a point deduction prop as an untracked sprinkle this week. Weezy, what are you looking at for this fight?
Yeah, really fun striker versus grappler matchup here. I've had so many bets on Priscilla Cachoeira fights that didn't happen that I was so pissed off about. Like, get these great violence lines, these great knockout lines, and Priscilla, known for cheating in a number of different ways. What the first one that we all know about is the fact that she never makes weight.
Never
Makes weight. Like even the fights that I think she's missed weight 3 times already, and they're giving her another flyweight fight. And it's like, come on, guys, just make it a 130-pound catch weight. Who we crapping here? She's not going to make 126. Sorry. So you got that to worry about. And then, if Priscilla Cachoeira were a 1980s professional wrestler, she'd be Cowboy Bob Orton. Just a notorious cheater, always working the refs, always trying to find a way to get around doing things the right way, looking for a shortcut to winning always. But Jasmine is not really a finisher at this level, and her striking's not very good. I mean, she just got outboxed by a wrestler in Tracy Cortez for 3 rounds. Tracy didn't even have to go to her wrestling to win that fight. So I really don't think that there's any doubt that when this fight is on the feet, not only is Priscilla going to be a lot more dangerous, but she's going to be just stalking this girl, and everything that she's throwing is going to be meant to try to take her head off. And Cachoeira's defense, takedown defense isn't horrible, Brady. It really isn't. She's got 65% takedown defense, which means her opponents are only getting takedowns at about a 35% clip, which makes her takedown defense above average. And she's only being controlled for 15% of her UFC cage time. So and that's with 3 takedowns for her and 35 for her opponents. She's gotten less than 10% of the takedowns in her fights, and that's about the winning how much she wins control time positions. So her grappling efficiency is about average, actually. It's just we have to take into consideration that she's not offensively grappling. She's just using her wrestling in reverse here. So the problem I have here is that Priscilla's power is how she wins fights, and Jasmine is stupid tough, right? So I think like a sneaky angle for this fight is that this fight goes to decision, because even though all of Jasmine's fights have went to decision, for Priscilla, 6 of her 9 UFC fights have finished inside the distance, and that's an unusually high percentage, because flyweight fights finish a little bit less than 40% of the time. Priscilla's fights are finishing at about 2/3 of the time, about 26% higher than what the division does. So I think maybe going the other way in this particular fight, counting on Jasvicius's durability. Her ability to take a punch is definitely there. We've seen her absorb a ton of strikes. I mean, frankly, 332 strikes in 5 UFC fights. She's gotten 7 shades of shit beaten out of her a couple of different times, and she's never looked like she's looking for a way out. And we know that Cachoeira is very, very durable. She's got a ton of heart. So even if she finds herself in some bad situations on the ground, I think she'll work her way out of them. But yeah, it's really hard to picture Jasvicius not winning the minutes of this fight and cruising to a decision victory here because she's durable and she can take a punch, and that she's going to panic wrestle immediately if Priscilla even comes close to touching her.
Yeah, I'm seeing it the exact same way. I think both fighters are very tough. I think this fight goes to decision as well, which I thought just like you, it'd be very sneaky. The over 2.5 is minus 160. The under 2.5 is plus 130. I honestly thought we might get plus money on like a fight goes, just because Priscilla Cachoeira fights finish all the time, but gonna have to lay up a little bit of juice there. But yeah, I think this fight does go the distance outside of like Jasvicius getting in that crucifix position. We've seen Cachoeira finish in that position before. albeit Shevchenko did it. And then we saw Jasudavicius almost get a TKO in the second round against Gabriela Fernandez. So, and I'm not sure Jasudavicius is going to be able to submit Cachoeira as well. See, I'm kind of leaning decision also, but it looks like I think the bookies are kind of onto it. Over 2.5 minus 160. Probably not terrible for a flyweight fight, but for a Cachoeira fight, I'm not sure I love it. But I think it probably hits. Any thoughts on minus 400 Jasudavicius, plus 300 Cachoeira, or the total? I'm assuming you like the over as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the bookies mess up and they'll give you something nice for like a Jasudavicius round 3 or decision type of prop, because she's not knocking her out in rounds 1 or 2, I don't think, unless, like you say, she gets to a dominant position, crucifix or something, and then the ref just stops in because Priscilla's unable to defend herself. But frankly, I think Priscilla will find her way out of those positions.
Cheating.
She's got a ton of heart, right, Brady?
Yeah.
So, if they screw that up and they put Jasudavicius round 3 decision at like minus 140 or something, that might be the way to play it. Or just Jasudavicius decision, see where that opens. I think that's probably the best way to go. But there's always the possibility that Jasudavicius wins a ton of minutes on the ground, but Priscilla lands some big shots on the feet, and that they give her a round or 2 on damage. So we have to account for that as well. Because you never know which way the judges are going to go. Sometimes they judge for control, like in the Basharat-Lapalus fight yesterday. They scored all that control time for Basharat while he wasn't doing much, in terms of landing strikes. And Lapalus was kind of winning the minutes on the feet, but he didn't win the minutes on the feet decisively enough to get any of those rounds on the judges' scorecards. And Basharat deserved to win that fight. But in some situations, like we've seen it, like remember Andrea Lee versus Macy Barber, where Lee takes her down like 5 times and controls her for 8 minutes, and Barber just swings bombs on the feet. Most of them don't even connect, and they give it to her on damage. So that could happen here, Brady. So that's why minus 400 Jasudavicius creeps me out just a little bit. But I mean, it's a tough matchup for Priscilla. She just doesn't do well against primary grapplers.
Nope, she does not. So yeah, it should be a pretty easy Jasudavicius win, but minus 400. What are you going to do? Maybe a parlay piece. I'm sure it is going to be a popular parlay piece, and I'm not doing it, but I get it. All right, Weezy, we have my main event of the evening. We have Malcolm Gordon going against Jimmy Flick. We got Malcolm Gordon, who is 33 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. We got Jimmy Flick, who is 33 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Same age there, same height, and Gordon's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Malcolm Gordon is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss to Sumadarji. Decision win against Francisco Figueiredo. Knockout win against Denise Bondar. Submission loss to Mohamed Makayev. And then a knockout loss to Jake Hadley. As far as Jimmy Flick, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Contender Series win against Nate Smith. I think that was in the 3rd round. Cody Durden submission win in the 1st round. That flying triangle. And then a knockout loss to both Charles Johnson and Alessandro Costa. I mean, I think this could be like the least durable fight of all time. These guys have a combined 14 losses, and 13 of those 14 losses come inside the distance. And this is a flyweight fight. These are 2 flyweights who just are not durable at all. Malcolm Gordon, 7 losses, 5 by knockout, and 2 by submission. Jimmy Flick's been knocked out 5 times himself. What I think a big talking point for me, at least this week, Weezy, is the motivation for Jimmy Flick, because this is a guy who I went back and watched some of his old fights, and I was actually really impressed with Jimmy Flick. Like, his wrestling looked a lot better than I thought it was. I didn't think this guy had the best wrestling, but he was going out there taking guys down in the regional scene, picking guys up and slamming them. I didn't think he had that in him, but no, this guy's a solid wrestler, but it's that grappling that's his bread and butter. You do not want this guy on top of you, and quite frankly, you don't want to go to the ground with this guy at all. So it was really impressed with, Jimmy Flick in the past. But after that Cody Durden win, with that incredible win, I mean, in his debut, the flying triangle, he goes out and retires. He says he's not fighting anymore. He's done. And that was in 2020, that Durden fight. He takes a couple of years off, comes back in 2023 and just looks terrible against Charles Johnson. And then he fights Alessandro Costa and looks terrible against Alessandro Costa. So, Flick's a guy that retired, came back, and is 0-2 since, getting knocked out in both of his losses. But he's taken on Malcolm Gordon, in which this is going to be his easiest matchup, in a while here. But Malcolm Gordon, he's a grappler as well, a black belt as well. What stuck out to me, Weezy, is Malcolm Gordon has a 9% takedown defense, which is a little concerning. So in theory, if Flick could get on top here, he could potentially do some damage, maybe get a sub. I like Flick's ground and pound as well. I think both guys are live for a sub here. I think both guys are live for a finish. I think it's a very violent fight. Although it's a flyweight fight, I think it's probably the most violent fight on the card. And quite frankly, with two untrustworthy guys, I would not trust any of these guys, especially at chalk. So Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight? This fight should be pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it should. I mean, no, it's gonna be hilarious. I mean, this is such a, I mean, like that word is overused, a meme fight, but this is a meme fight. Like you're gonna see like that little ball ping hammer that cracks the glass. Like that's what you're gonna watch this film through. Is just broken glass, knowing that somebody's eventually gonna get served at some point. But what's kind of funny? I kind of want to bet an over here. Oh, these guys stink on ice. Who is Malcolm Gordon going to finish that doesn't break his own arm like Dennis Bondar, And I mean, like, if Gordon's a black belt, I mean, like, is he going to get submitted by
is he a black belt though? He is a black belt.
He is. There's a jiu-jitsu instructor out there somewhere in Canada, Brady, that gave Malcolm Gordon a black belt, and he's 6-2 to the submission in his career, but Flick is 14-0.
He's
to the
incredible.
Submission, right? So it's like Gordon could knock out Jimmy Flick. That could happen, I think, because Gordon's striking is pretty good. I mean, it's serviceable for the UFC level, and that's not, the word serviceable isn't like a knock at all. I mean, if your striking is UFC serviceable, it's good. It's just not, nobody's talking about Malcolm Gordon from the angle of like, yeah, this guy's going to go out there and pick you apart. He's going to win minutes on the feet. He could potentially knock you out on the feet. No, man, he's more of a submission grappler that wins with his ground game. And it's the same thing for Flick. So both guys should get the fight that they want, And you were disparaging Malcolm Gordon's 9% takedown defense, Brady. It's still 9% better than Flick's. So like a gust of wind would take either of these guys down. So whoever wants this fight on the ground is going to be able to get it there. So I think both guys are going to get the fight that they want. It's going to be a super fun grappling level. These guys are going to be trading submission attempts constantly. I won't be betting the over, Brady. I'm just saying I want to bet it because I kind of want to be there after a round and a half, laughing my ass off, cashing an over ticket, saying, I told you neither of these guys was good enough to finish a UFC opponent, and, maybe I'm right about that. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is going to be a fun fight that I intend to watch, but I kind of feel like violence is the angle, and that's no secret here. So it might be a place that's kind of like hard to find value, but there could be some value in that Malcolm Gordon's money line. I think he's better than this dude. I think he's better than Flick, dude. Dude, Charles Johnson, right? Beat the shit out of Jimmy Flick, right? Charles Johnson folds like a lawn chair whenever anybody tries to take him down. And all Jimmy Flick needed to do in order to win that fight was take Charles Johnson down, something he's been done to by every single UFC opponent, thus far. And was Flick able to do that, Brady?
No.
As a matter of fact, he got 7 shades of shit beaten out of him quickly. I mean, like, when has Charles Johnson finished anybody in the first round?
Never.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he did it to Flick. So I think Gordon's better than this dude. Canada, stand up. One of your best black belts is fighting on Saturday, and he's doing it against another submission specialist. I think he does it for Canada, Brady. I think they sing "Oh Canada" after he locks him up in a triangle choke here, or maybe he knocks him out. Maybe he shows him some of that Canadian power. Starches this dude. But this is going to be a fun one, man. But I just don't want to have too strong of a take because it's one of those bets that emotionally would be hard to lose if you're on the wrong side of this one.
Yeah, I'm picking a ton of Canadians this card. I'm not picking Malcolm Gordon here.
Okay.
I'm gonna take Flick. This could be like a freaking Jesus Aguilar situation, dude. Like Jimmy Flick has 0 knockouts. Would it shock anybody if he Jesus Aguilar this guy? Would it shock
I would
anybody?
just be laughing so hard, dude. As long as I didn't have money on the fight, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I wonder what Flick by KO, because he's
like
never knocked anybody out in his career.
Never. Everybody's gonna bet the Flick sub. Watch him pull an Aguilar, one punch, body shot. Malcolm Gordon's just not durable at all. But yeah, I like violence here. I'm actually surprised to see that the under 1.5 isn't minus 400, right? Because that's what they've been doing lately, just completely overpricing the unders. Apparently, this morning I was sleeping. I took like NyQuil last night. I wasn't feeling good. Forgot to set an alarm. I woke up at like 2 today, which was weird, but one of those days. Anyway, a little sick. But anyway, apparently the under 2.5 opened up at plus 105.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So I know some people got, of course, Propaholic got on that, but under 2.5 was plus 105. Now the under 1.5 is minus 125. Yeah, we'll see. I'm probably going to be betting violence here. I don't think I'm going to bet Flick KO, but that's like my could be like a Jesus Aguilar play of the week. He goes out there and starches Malcolm Gordon. Yeah, it'd be hilarious if it does happen. It could be freaking hilarious. But I think both guys are live for a knockout. I think both guys are probably live for a submission. I think it's a violent fight. I'm gonna go Flick. But I do worry about his mentality first and foremost, because I went back and watched some of his older fights. I was really impressed with his wrestling, and obviously the ground game's top notch. But he's very breakable. I think he has a lot of quit in him. But then we'll see if Malcolm Gordon can kind of make him quit there and finish him down the stretch. So a very fun fight here. This is the fight I'm most looking forward to, Weezy. Really looking forward to the Malcolm Gordon fight.
Let me say one thing, Brady, that I think is very interesting, because we've kind of been conditioned, especially last week, to just expect ridiculous violence lines, right?
Yeah.
And then my thought was, when I saw Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick, was, okay, yeah, I think it's going under, but there's no way I'm going to get anything bettable. So I immediately started thinking, hey, I wonder where the overs open up here, because maybe both of these guys are too big of a bum to finish anybody at the UFC level. But as I'm looking at the line for this under 1.5, it's like Bet Online hired a completely new risk management department here, because minus 125 is a 55% implied probability. For Gordon, 4 of 6 of his fights have went under 1.5. And for Flick, it's all 3 of 3. So actually 7 of 9, or 78% of these guys' 9 UFC fights have finished under, not just inside the distance, but under 1.5 rounds. So at minus 125, dude, that thought is bettable of a violence line for 2 of the most fragile guys in the UFC squaring off against each other. Yeah, you might throw your remote through your television when you actually do find out that neither one of these guys is good enough to finish somebody at the UFC level. But at this current price, Brady, that's a very bettable line.
Yeah, it could be. And to be fair, I mean, Flick did finish Cody. Cody Duran's an incredible fighter.
Yes. And I mean, a flying triangle. So that's one of those things you go, yeah, that was a hell of a finish. But how replicable is a flying triangle at the UFC level? When was the last time you saw anybody before or after Flick get a flying triangle?
Can't remember off the top of my head. It's happened.
That was wild. So you got to chalk it up kind of as a fluke, If you see somebody get a banana split or some shit, you'd be like, wow, that guy just won with a banana split or a buggy choke. But is it replicable? Probably not.
Even like Malcolm Gordon's finish win was kind of flukish, breaking
a broken arm. Yeah. And it was Dennis Bondar, who's also a fraud.
But I feel like something like flukish is going to probably happen in this meme fight, like you said. I feel like something crazy is going to happen here. So yeah, looking forward to it for sure. JP agreeing that it was a fluke. I thought it was impressive. Maybe it was a fluke.
But he's impressive.
He's an incredible grappler.
He is. You just don't want to be on the ground with that guy. But it's going to be a fun fight either way.
Yep. So somebody in the chat said this was the 1-800 Gambler fight of the week. I disagree. For me, it's this fight actually. We got Johan Lioness going against Sam Patterson, and I'll tell you why. We'll start with Johan Lioness. He's 31 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. Sam Patterson, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. We got Patterson 4 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Johan Lioness is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against, I think it was Justin Burlinson on the Contender Series in the first round, a knockout loss to Gabriel Green in the second, decision loss against Darian Weeks where the judges completely screwed up the scorecards, and then a submission loss to Mike Malott. As far as Sam Patterson makes his debut against Yanal Ashmos and loses that fight by probably one of the most brutal knockouts of last year. It was a knockout loss where I was like actually worried for Sam Patterson. And he's making his comeback here against Johan Lioness. So the reason I think this is 1-800 Gambler for me is because there's things I don't like on both sides. We'll start with Johan Lioness. The thing I don't like about Johan Lioness is this is a guy that he's a finisher first and foremost. This is a guy, if you watch his fights outside the UFC, he's sparking guys. He's knocking them out. He's showing a ton of power. But, getting into the UFC, he's just looked off. Against Gabe Green, he was broken and finished in the second. He had some success there, but just was broken and finished. Not the best look. Against Darian Weeks, it seems like he went out there and just completely changed up his style. Like, this is a guy in Johan Lioness who used to be very aggressive, used to throw a lot of strikes, a lot of powerful strikes, trying to take off his opponent's head. And if it works, it does. He knocks him out. If not, he gasses out, gets finished himself. But he took a completely different approach in terms of doing nothing. He pulled a William Knight in that Weeks fight. He won the fight while landing 10 strikes in the last 10 minutes of the fight. How does that even happen? He was outlanded 19-5 in the second, outlanded 12-5 in the third round, and Johan Lioness gets the win. Like, that's a William Knight type performance. So I did not like that. And then he goes out there against Mike Malott. Tough matchup, yes, but landed 1 strike in 4 minutes. And that fight was on the feet for like 3 minutes, and he only landed 1 strike. So he looks gun shy in there. It looks like he's trying not to gas out, and that's just not his game. If I knew for a fact that Johan Lioness would come out here aggressive like he did in the Burlinson fight, like he did in the Evan Cutts fight, trying to take off Patterson's head, I'd love him in the spot. But if he comes out there and doesn't throw anything, like, how are you going to win a fight if you don't throw anything at all? Like, this volume's atrocious, landing only 2.34 strikes per minute, just terrible for Johan Lioness. So there's that. And then on the other side of things, Sam Patterson has the definition of tall man's defense, some of the worst defense I think I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, Johan Lioness can absolutely knock him out. So I don't really want to pick either of these guys, but I think we have to. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy. Which side do you land on?
I like this fight. I actually like this fight because I think we know who both of these guys are. I think we can agree on a few things here, Brady, that Sam Patterson is without question the minute winner in this fight for all 15 minutes.
Yes, easy.
And I think we can also agree that Johan Lioness, especially early, I mean, he carries all the power, and that you have to worry about somebody who's built like Sam Patterson here, but here's something that nobody's talking about with this fight. This is a welterweight debut for Sam Patterson. He's fought his entire career at lightweight, right? Yeah. Brutal weight cut for this guy at 6'3". When he was in Brave, they were saying he was 6'4". I think he's listed. Where do I have him listed here? I got him listed at 6'3", right? So this is his welterweight debut. Patterson coming up for the first time from 155 to 170 and fighting a guy with a lot of power, but we might see a little bit of an improved chin here from Sam Patterson. But here's what Patterson does well. He does well staying long when he strikes. He has great footwork, and he's got phenomenal conditioning. So one of the things that Patterson is able to do very well when you watch his tape is constantly keep his feet moving and be a moving target. He's not going to stand right in front of Johan Lioness. He's going to be moving laterally, leading with kicks, and making Lioness come to him. And Sam Patterson's guillotine defense when his opponents are trying to take him down reminds me a lot of Said Nurmagomedov. He goes for that high elbow power guillotine, and he gets it. He's got those neural ass arms, those bony ass arms that get up under that Adam's apple and start shutting down blood flow to the brain. and he's very good at it. And that's how he's done well, avoiding grappling transitions that he doesn't want to be in while he's fighting these Russian crotch sniffers over in the Brave promotion, like Magomedov, like what was the guy's name? It was one of the recent fights. I'm not even up. The Asmaev fight, right? He does. And then he fought the champion in Brave. Went to a draw with this guy, and this guy was grappling him for the entire fight. And you saw Patterson absolutely break the dude in half in the third round. And if this fight had taken place in the UFC, it would have been considered a third round finish because his opponent was unable to get up off the canvas for at least 30 seconds after the round was over. Every minute that this fight takes place, Brady, that Leoness doesn't get a knockout, his win percentage is going to go so drastically down because Sam Patterson's conditioning is phenomenal. He stays long. He won't let you grapple him without looking to submit you, and he's very good at that. And he's going to absolutely be throwing way more volume than we're going to see Johan Leoness. Look at that. 6.42 distance strike attempts per minute from Johan Leoness. That is
terrible.
Pitiful.
Trash.
That is absolutely pitiful in terms of output. And you can't blame Patterson for that number because his UFC career has lasted 1.25 minutes. And the first punch that Ashmouz landed, knocked him out, knocked him down, and then he was finished on the ground. So that is going to be a very interesting fight. I think Leoness round 1 is a great way to look at this. I think that there's a very low likelihood that this fight goes to decision. And I like Sam Patterson in this spot because I know I'm going to have to worry about that early knockout, but the move up to 170, that is a big deal for me. And conditioning is such a huge part of breaking down any fight. And with Patterson, you've got a guy whose conditioning is probably 9 out of 10. And with Leoness, it's below a 5.
Like a 2.
Yeah. I mean, the guy mouth wide open in a lot of his fights, breathing heavy in round number 1. And that's because he throws 100% power into every strike that he throws. Mostly overhand rights, check left hooks. He'll throw uppercuts that come from like a 1.5 foot underground. He looks like Don Flamenco in the old Mike Tyson Punch-Out video game. It's just ridiculous uppercuts. So, yeah, Leoness is kind of slow, but he is super powerful and dangerous early in fights. So, yeah, we're going to see if Sam Patterson's chin can hold up, especially early in this fight against Leoness. But if it does, I think he's going to break him late.
Okay, so I wasn't going to bet on this fight, but you might have talked me into a couple different looks. I actually picked Leoness first round knockout, but it's kind of hard to trust him. But I mean, like I said, if he comes out here aggressive, I think Sam Patterson's super hittable. But so yeah, Leoness KO 1, and then also Patterson round 2, round 3. Those are props that I'm going to have circled this week. I think those are 2 solid outcomes. The under 1.5 is like -160 to the under 1.5. I don't like that just because Leoness has been doing like nothing as of late. So yeah, if Patterson does win, I kind of see it like you being a late finish there. Leoness early finish. I hate the total, but I'm going to be looking at those props. But I'm not touching a money line. I really don't like either of these guys at all. And but I do like those prop sprinkles on either side. Those make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun fight, and I think it's like a really fun clash of styles. You got your front-loaded power guy who knocks people out early against your cardio and volume and, pace and pressure guy who kind of gets better as the fight goes on. So I think you can see a couple of different outcomes kind of show themselves here. And because, Brady, the line is already close, Leoness -140, -145, you get some fat numbers on those props. So this fight definitely has my eye this week.
Okay. I like it. I like it. Hopefully this fight's more exciting than like you're saying, going to be exciting. These Lioness fights have just been tough to watch, but maybe Patterson will maybe bring the fight out of them a little bit. I'm hoping that happens.
Yeah. And on Patterson's only 2 career losses, Brady, are first round starchings. So if I'm Johan Leoness, I'm saying to myself, man, that's my path here. So
exactly.
this would be a bad time for me to worry about getting tired. I'd like to knock this guy out quickly in front of the home Canadian crowd, get my check, and then go party.
Yes, 100%. All right, so that should be an interesting fight. We'll move on to another very interesting fight. We got Jillian Robertson going against Polyana Viana. We got Jillian Robertson, 28 years old, 5'5" with a 63-inch reach. Polyana Viana, 31 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Robertson, 3 years younger, same height, and then Viana with a 4-inch reach advantage. Jillian Robertson, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Submission win against Priscilla Cachoeira, decision loss against JJ Aldrich, a submission win against Maria Agapova and Piera Rodriguez, and then a decision loss to Tabitha Ricci. As far as Polyana Viana, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, a submission win against Emily Whitmire, a submission win against Mallory Martin, decision loss to Tabitha Ricci, knockout win against Jinyu Fry, and then a submission loss to Yasmin Luciendo. See, I looked at this line, I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I looked into the fight a little bit, and I think it's a pretty good matchup for Jillian Robertson, just because I feel like Viana, she doesn't mind getting taken down. And I looked at her takedown defense, it's 43%. I was actually shocked to see it was that high, because it seems like anytime somebody tries to take her down, she gets taken down, and she'll actually pull guard a lot of those times as well. So she's very content to be on her back. That's where she likes to be. And, why not? She has multiple submission wins in the UFC. Submitting Polyana Viana by armbar, submitting Emily Whitmire by armbar. But, just getting Jillian Robertson on top is just not something you want. And I feel like Jillian's going to be the better wrestler here, and I think that's key. Jillian Robertson's actually averaging 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. She's not a terrible wrestler. And in this matchup specifically, I think she'll have no problem taking down Viana. And when Jillian Robertson gets on top, she's a problem. Good ground and pound, really good submission game. Viana's been subbed twice in the UFC. So, yeah, the more I looked into it, the more I kind of liked Robertson. But she is a pretty big favorite. I feel like, Viana is super dangerous on the feet. She's super dangerous. And I feel like she's getting counted out a little bit, but I think I got to go Robertson here. And we'll talk about the total a little bit. I think somebody's definitely live to get finished in this one. I haven't looked at it yet. But, Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, this is a great one. You got the hometown girl in Jillian Robertson here, and you got, a popular fighter in Polyana Viana, who's a very good grappler. So, but what's interesting about this fight is that, I think we've got another situation where when this fight is on the feet, I really do favor Viana's striking. I mean, first of all, she's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. Second of all, when you look at the distance striking metrics, which are right here, well, you can't see what I'm highlighting, but it's right there in the middle of your screen there, the offensive distance striking statistics. You'll see a negative 1.64 distance striking differential for Jillian Robertson. She's getting hit a lot more than she hits her opponents at range. And it's the opposite for Viana. And she's got that reach advantage, and she's got some power. She lands 5.43, but only absorbs 4.38. Also, there's a big volume differential as well, Brady. Robertson's only attempting a little less than 11 distance strikes per minute, but her opponents are attempting 15. And Viana, on the other side, 14.61 attempted and 10.89 that is coming back her way. So while Jillian Robertson is low volume and gets out-volumed by her opponents, it's the opposite for Viana. She's high volume, and she throws more volume than her opponents, and she just looks like she's got a little more power at feet. At range, she looks like she uses her length well. She throws her punches straight, which makes her take advantage of her big frame for this weight class. So I do like Polyana at distance striking range, but the problem here is that Jillian Robertson, this goat shed version of Jillian Robertson, who's really trying to pick up her wrestling game, and she's moved down to 115. So while she was wrestling effectively up at 125, it's going to be a little bit easier for her down here at 115, especially when you're going against girls that both of these girls fold like a lawn chair anytime anyone tries to take them down. They both have the exact same takedown defense. They're both have only attempted successfully 7 of 16 takedown attempts against them both. But Polyana sees more takedown attempts than Robertson. And you see those numbers, right? 41.79% control time for, 18.5% control time allowed for Robertson. So she's winning almost 70% of the control time positions in her fights. Viana, 9% control time for, 44% control time allowed. So she's done such a bad job of losing minutes in grappling exchanges, which is exactly how Jillian wants to win fights in this. But I think the Viana side at plus money is intriguing, Brady, and here's why. I think Viana wins the minutes and the moments at distance striking range. And both of these ladies spend about 40, 45, 50% of the time at distance striking range. I think Viana's a clear favorite there. When this thing hits the ground, we know that Viana's going to be able to get some submission attempts going here. She's a very high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I could also see Viana getting a reversal, getting some really deep submission attempts that could actually have her banking rounds, even if she doesn't get them, because she's winning the minutes on the feet. And because Jillian, instead of being offensive while she's on top, she's just defending submission attempts. So Jillian's going to have to be very careful that when she takes Polyana down, she's already advanced to side control or half guard. Because if she winds up in the full guard of Polyana, I think she's going to be playing a lot of defense here. And that's not a good thing. But I think Polyana's kind of live here. But I definitely like Jillian's strength to schedule better. I like her wins better. And I like Jillian's ability to win minutes in the grappling exchanges way better than Polyana's here.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little more confident in Robertson than you are, but I'm not laying minus 225. Something interesting you said was that Viana could potentially bank rounds. Are you thinking maybe Viana wins her first decision here, maybe?
It could happen because, I mean, it's not like Jillian's winning minutes. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that putrid 1-4 record to the decision, right?
Yeah.
Jillian and Polyana are both moment winners. Jillian, 12 career wins, 10 of them inside the distance. Polyana, 13 career wins, all 13 inside the distance. So you've got 23 of 25 of these ladies' combined wins are inside the distance. But here's the rub, Brady. Polyana's only been finished in 2 of 6 losses. And for Jillian Robertson, it's 2 of 8. So these girls are getting finished in less than 40% of their losses. So what happens if this does go the distance? You know?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Jillian winning the minutes with her wrestling and top control and ground and pound? Or, you know, is Polyana going to be making her play defense down there and winning minutes on the feet? So I think it's a very interesting stylistic matchup that if you dive a little bit deeper into it, you could see arguments for both fighters winning this fight.
Yeah. Let's see. Robertson minus 225, Viana plus 190. The under, of course, it's juiced to minus 140. I do like violence here. I like Robertson by sub, but I think they're going to be all over it there. So maybe if you like Viana, maybe like the Viana plus 3.5. With that said, they're probably going to open it up something terrible like the Lapalus. Any thoughts on maybe a Viana prop then for you?
Yeah, I mean, even a KO prop could be interesting because it would be juice. I mean, that would be a big number, but it's not likely to happen, obviously.
Maybe. I kind of think that's her. I think that's how she wins, personally. KO.
Yeah, or a guard submission. You never know. I mean, Jillian has been submitted once. Polyana has been submitted twice. You know, and both of these ladies, obviously, more of submission threats than KO threats for the most part. So it's a fascinating fight. This is going to be a very good one. But as of right now, I want to dig deeper before I make any plays. You know.
Yeah, nothing for me yet. I'm leaning violence, and I'm going to be probably looking at maybe some Robertson late sub props as well. So we'll see. All right, so moving on to the next fight, we have Sidey going against Ramon Tavares. We got Sidey, 27 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. We got Tavares, 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Sidey is 2 years younger. Sidey, 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Sidey's 5-0 in his last 5 fights, one on the Contender Series against Tavares, one by first-round knockout. And then as far as Tavares, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, got knocked out by Sidey in the first, and then knocked out Contavious, Are You Not Entertained, Romeus in the first round as well. So, yeah, rematch here in the first fight. I mean, Tavares, it was pretty competitive, I'd say, but Tavares was looking good with the striking. He was piecing up Sidey, it looked like a little bit, and then Sidey was able to knock him down, and it had to be like one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. As soon as Sidey knocked down Tavares, the ref stopped it, and Tavares is like, "What the heck are you doing?" So, Sidey did knock out Tavares, but I mean, come on, he didn't really knock him out at all. So, now we have a rematch here where Sidey is, I think it's about the same as it was on the Contender Series. I think Sidey was like a moderate favorite, minus 150 here. I think he's minus 150 right now. I don't know. I think it's a close fight. I think there's reasons to like both sides. With Sidey, you have, in theory, a potential grappling advantage. He does a lot of grappling outside the UFC. He didn't really, though, maybe one attempt. They primarily were striking, but he has a ton of experience. He's actually fought some good guys. So there's some reasons to like Sidey. And then as far as Tavares, this guy has some of the best power I've seen from a bantamweight. On his Instagram, he says he has like a 9-2 knockdown ratio, which, yeah, I think it might even more than that. Like every time this guy fights somebody, he's like knocking them down. And even against Contavious Ramius, it says he knocked him down once, but he sat him down like 3 times in that fight. So I think it's primarily a striker versus striker matchup. I think it's a very close fight. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that was one of the worst stoppages ever, and what was so weird about the stoppage was like that after it happened, Tavares didn't look as mad as he was confused. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like he was like I'm gonna choke this prick, because like Kevin McDonald was standing right next to him the whole time, and Tavares was like looking at his corner. He's like, "Did you see that?" Because like his head didn't hit the canvas, his eyes never rolled back, he never looked out of it, and the ground strikes that Serhiy landed, they didn't. I don't even think they really did any damage or didn't even look to be. He was defending himself, so I'm glad we get to see this rematch because this guy Sidey. He looks smooth at distance, man. I mean, he's tall. He's got a great frame for the weight class. Love the way that he was throwing those kicks, trying to maintain distance and keep Tavares out of the pocket. And his punches come straight down the pipe, which I love seeing from longer fighters, because it helps them take advantage of that reach advantage that they have, stay defensively responsible, which is so important in this sport. And with Tavares, you got a guy that he's going to find his way into that pocket. He's going to throw those hands. He's a boxer first before he is a kickboxer. But I think that, Sidey can win some minutes here and use his length. Both of these guys have got pretty good experience, pretty good names on their resume. Tavares has fought, a legend of the sport and Charles Bennett. He's got a win by sub over Martin Day, who had a lot of tough fights at the UFC level. And then that's Tavares, but, also Willel Watson on Surrey City's resume, a former UFC fighter, some pretty good regional scene guys as well. So I think that these are 2 good prospects, but I kind of favor the youth, the height, the reach, the switch stance, and the technical superiority of the kickboxing game of Sidey to Tavares' more pure boxing game. When Cortavius fought Ramon, he kind of gave him exactly what he wanted. He just went right into that pocket, which is where Tavares is really the most comfortable when he can get into boxing range and just put combinations together. And he was precise and he landed on Cortavius really hard a number of times there. But I think Sidey's going to make it a little bit more difficult to be found and to land those big shots. So very interesting fight. No real leans yet in terms of who I think is going to win or any bets, but I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, what I think is hilarious is they have the over/under set at 1.5. Like this feels certainly like a 2.5 spot. I know Sidey knocked him out in the first round, but I mean, come on, he didn't. So yeah, I thought that was gonna be at 2.5. I don't hate violence here, I suppose, but not at 1.5. Like that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So prior to that knockdown from Sidey, I mean, these two looked very, very well matched. So I'm kind of more so on the dog side. I actually picked Sidey on the Contender Series. I think I might pick Tavares here. No 2 fights play out the same ever. So I'm going to take Tavares. I love the power, the boxing, and I'll take him to potentially get a knockout here. It was looking violence, but not a 1.5. Any thoughts on the total for you?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are finishers, Brady. That's for sure. I mean, Sidey has 1 decision loss. Tavares has been finished in both of his losses, but like you said, man, I mean, was it a finish? Not really. So, but we have seen Tavares knocked out before. So like I say, I'm gonna look more into this one. UFC debut for both of them, so it's hard to have too big of an opinion either way because they're both making their debut, and we always find out a lot more information about these fighters at the UFC level because they can look phenomenal on the regional scene, but doesn't really mean shit until you get that UFC win, as we saw in Zach Reese's case when he was a big favorite over Brundage, and we just saw with Tom Nolan being a big favorite over a veteran like Nick Moda. You know, you really don't know what these guys are going to look like until they face UFC level competition, and here they are facing another regional scene guy again. I feel like we still got more to find out about both of these young men, is that both of them are on the right side of 30. Well, Tavares just turned 30 on January 9th. Happy birthday, Ramon Tavares.
Yeah, no, that's true. But Reese really didn't fight anybody. Nolan didn't as well. I feel like these two are like a lot more tested than some of these other guys.
That's true. 6-0 records on regional scenes are very, very suspect when you come and fight at this level, you know? And these guys have got more fights than that. They both got 11 fights, so a little bit more well-tested, like you said.
Yep. But yeah, both guys making their debut should be a fun fight. Their first fight was fun as well. Hopefully Kevin McDonald's not reffing this time. I mean, what was that? I mean, that was terrible.
It's a bad one.
All right. We'll move on to the next fight. We have Charles Jourdain going against Sean Woodson. We got Charles Jourdain, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. Sean Woodson, he is 31 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Jourdain, 3 years younger. Jourdain with a 6 or a 5-inch height disadvantage and then a 9-inch reach disadvantage as well. Charles Jourdain is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Lando Venata. Decision loss against Shane Burgos. Decision loss against Nathaniel Wood. Decision win against Crone Gracie, and then a submission win against Ricardo Ramos. As far as Sean Woodson, he is 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss to Julian Erosa, a decision win against Yusuf Salah, a knockout win against Colin England, a draw against Luis Saldana, and then a decision win against Dennis Bazookia in his last fight out. So yeah, I think this fight's going to be fun, man. It's a Charles Jourdain fight. And we have a guy in Sean Woodson who's going to be much bigger, much longer. It's going to be Charles Jourdain who's going to be probably doing a lot of pressuring here. I think these guys are going to throw down. Don't really see either of these guys going for many takedowns. Charles Jourdain's landed 1 takedown in his UFC career. Sean Woodson's landed a couple, but probably wouldn't be wise to grapple here. I think we get a striker versus grappler matchup here, Weezy, and a very fun one at that.
You think Jourdain's going to grapple?
I would like him to. I mean, that'd be awesome if he did, but, only 1 takedown. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys are going to strike personally, for sure. I think these guys strike, and it's going to be so much fun. Yeah, and what we have to talk about is how is Jourdain going to close this distance? And I think we can count on him to do that, right? Because I think one of the biggest differences between these two guys is the fact that Jourdain seems to have legit power, right? He can flatline you with 1 shot. While Woodson, and we found this out in the Julian Erosa fight in particular, is that Woodson needs to start sitting down on his punches because he was winning all the minutes of that Erosa fight, who's also another long, tall featherweight, right? But he was able to manage distance, use that boxing range, use those kicks in order to keep the distance. And it wasn't until Erosa just flipped the switch and said, you know what? I'm going to march this dude down and just kick the shit out of him. I'm going to walk through everything that he throws, all that pitter-patter garbage that's not going to knock me out, and I'm going to fucking kill this guy. And that's exactly what he did. And look at what Saldana did to him. Saldana went out there and smoked him in the first round, showed no fight IQ whatsoever, leaving him sleeping on the mat while he's like celebrating a win. It reminded me of a scene in Bloodsport where the guy who played Jackson winds up knocking down Chong Li, and then he starts playing to the crowd like, I just beat him, and like Van Damme's in the crowd going, go finish him, what are you waiting for? And then Chong Li gets up and whoops his ass. When you knock the guy down, finish him. Don't be a dumbass and start dancing around like you're doing the salsa, like you're Waldo Cortez Acosta. You drop somebody, you fucking finish him, Brady. Come on. Yep. So that was something where I'm seeing, Jourdain can absolutely do that to Woodson. I think that he in front of that Canadian crowd is going to say, son, if you don't sit down on anything, I'm going to walk through what you throw. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to rib roast you with that neuro ass, those ribs that are already all showing on Woodson. You know, I think he's going to throw big knees, big kicks, and just march this dude down and disrespect him. And it's not like Woodson's going to be able to win minutes on top, because if he takes Jourdain down, Jourdain's either getting back up or putting him in a guillotine or a submission of some kind, because he's a way higher level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player than Woodson is. So I think if Jourdain doesn't want to play a distance striking game with him here, if he wants to make this a dirty, scrappy fight about who wants it more, who's tougher, and who hits harder, I think Jourdain's going to look minus 300 here. But, you know, sometimes trying to close the distance against somebody as big and unusually large for the division as Sean Woodson is can be a really difficult thing to do. So I mean, have you watched any tape on Jourdain against him? Have ever seen him fight somebody of this size?
Julian Erosa would be probably the biggest. Julian Erosa is 6'1".
Yeah. Outside of the I was going to say the Erosa fight, you know, and that could scrap, you know, and they both fought Erosa, so I think that good tape to start with here. But yeah, I want to see Jourdain pressuring here. He cannot stay on the outside and try to trade 1-for-1 with Woodson, because he's going to get outpointed and outvolumed. Look at Woodson's volume, Brady. 18 significant strike attempts per minute. That's almost 6 more than the divisional average. 45% accurate. Showing even got 2 knockdowns in 6 fights, while Jourdain has 6 and 12. So these guys are both phenomenal strikers, but I just see Woodson being a better minute winner, and I see Jourdain being the guy landing the bigger shots and being the better moment winner here, and also the guy more likely to win moments on the ground should this fight go there, because he's got a lot more submissions to his credit. 5 wins by submission, 2 of them in the UFC for this guy, while Woodson only has 1 submission victory in his career and none in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you broke it down perfectly, and I thought you laid it out pretty good for Charles Jourdain. To win this fight, he can't, stay at range for 15 minutes in the big cage against a guy with a 9-inch reach advantage. He's got to pressure. He's got to, like you said, show this guy no respect, which I kind of have a feeling he's going to do just that. So, yeah, I think Jourdain does win this fight, and like you said, on the mat, it heavily favors Jourdain. Whether it's him for some reason getting a takedown, I don't expect him to, or if Woodson would take him down. If this fight hits the mat, whether it's a slip or whatever, if it hits the mat, Jourdain probably subs Woodson, but I do primarily expect this fight to stay standing, and I expect Jourdain to pressure. I think, early on it could be competitive, but I think if Jourdain does pressure for the full 15, I could see him maybe breaking Woodson down the stretch. We've seen Woodson just completely break and get broken in that Erosa fight. I can see something like that happening, because Charles Jourdain, he's one of these, third round mythical creatures. I mean, that third round he had against even Shane Burgos, where he went out there against Shane Burgos in the third round, landed 84 strikes against that guy. He went out there in the third round against Andre Ewell, looked like a man possessed. Same thing with Marcelo Rojo. In the third round, Charles Jourdain puts it on, and maybe he can finish Woodson late. So I'm looking at maybe some Jourdain late props could potentially be in play if he does come out there like a madman, pressuring nonstop. But yeah, I think early on it could look, fairly competitive. I do like Woodson striking, his length, his range, all the good stuff. But I kind of see Charles Jourdain taking over down the stretch. Charles Jourdain minus 173, Sean Woodson plus 148. Any thoughts on the line, Weezy?
I think Jourdain maybe goes to minus 200 here. Hometown guy, more powerful guy. And the wins, you're talking about wins over Ricardo Ramos, Lando Venata, Kron Gracie, a little bit better than Dennis Bazookier, Colin Anglin and Zalal. And frankly, if Saldana had more than 1 round of conditioning and didn't fight like a complete dumbass, that would have been a loss for him too. So, and I see Saldana as a very similar type of striker to Charles Jourdain, smooth, technical, and powerful, who's got a little bit of a BJJ game as well. So I like Jourdain here at minus 170. Sounds about right. I think it's going to get more and more juice though as the week goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that Saldana fight couldn't be any worse of a look to me. I'm not big on Luis Saldana whatsoever, but yeah, I think the money line's about right. Not really touching that, but I think Charles Jourdain late props could be interesting. They're always in play with this guy. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 150. The under 2.5 plus 120. Any interest in the total? I don't really have any interest one way or another.
Dude, I'll tell you, my prop template always tells me to bet these overs in these Charles Jourdain fights, and I didn't listen in the Kron Gracie fight. Right now, we got a trifecta bet at over 2.5 at minus 150 right now. 9 of 12 Jourdain fights go over 2.5 rounds at the UFC level. And for Woodson, it's 5 of 6, Brady. So 78%, and we're only paying 60% on the line. So the analytics love the over here. But it's a question of, do you want to be holding an over ticket in this fight? It's not fun betting overs. Betting overs is for people who have some intestinal fortitude. It's not for everybody, Brady.
It's not. I almost bet my first over in a while in the main event last night with Walker Ankalaev. It did hit. It hit by like 5 seconds, but it hit nonetheless. And it was a sweat too, but it hit. It came through.
I know, dude. I mean, he folded Walker. That was a nasty knockout. Big ups, Magomed Ankalaev. He needed a knockout like that, Brady, to get back to people giving a shit about him, to give him a title shot again.
It looks like some people are giving a shit about him now. I'm still not, but it looks like some people are.
It was a good win. It was a good win for him.
It's a good knockout win there. All right, we'll move on then to the next fight. We got Chris Curtis going against Marc-André Barriault. We got Chris Curtis, 36 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Marc-André Barriault, he's 33 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. We got Marc-André. He is 3 years younger. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Curtis, he is 2-2 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Rodolfo Vieira. Decision loss against Jack Hermanson. Knockout win against Joaquin Buckley. Decision loss against Calvin Gastelum, and then a no contest against Evloev in a fight he was on his way to lose. As far as Marc-André Barriault, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss against Sidey Njokuani. And I think me and you had the same. What was the bet we had in that fight? We had
a Barriault finish only.
Yes.
Sometimes you just gotta laugh when you get it that wrong. When you got the finish only prop and they get knocked out in 8 seconds, it's like, come on.
Yes, that was hilarious. So yeah, I got knocked out by Sidey, submits Jourdain Wright, which I think I had like a knockout prop in that fight, and he gets a sub. Like, come on, man. Loses by submission against Anthony Hernandez, knocks out Julian Marquez. I was there live for that fight. That was incredible. And actually bet the over in that fight as well, the over 1.5, and that came through barely. And then he fought Eric Anders and won that fight by decision. So, in my opinion, I think this is a very, very close fight, and the line doesn't really reflect that at all. Chris Curtis, minus 180. I mean, this is going to be a striker versus striker matchup. Nobody's getting a takedown here. Marc-André Barriault has attempted 8, but I doubt he attempts any takedowns here. And if he does, he's not taking down Chris Curtis, who has some of the best takedown defense I've ever seen. I think on paper, Curtis's takedown defense is like 96%, something crazy. So, it's a striker versus striker matchup. And on the feet, I love Chris Curtis's striking, but he's a guy that kind of takes his time. He's a guy that kind of drops early rounds. And he's a guy that's, in a lot of his fights, he's getting outlanded by Evloev 57-26, outlanded by Gastelum 83-70, outlanded by Joaquin Buckley in a fight that he won 50-36, outlanded by Jack Hermanson 100-43, outlanded against Phil Hawes in a fight he won 48-21, did outland Vieira and Allen, but this guy can fall behind a little bit in terms of the numbers, and Barriault's a crazy volume guy, landing 6 strikes per minute. So it's a fight that I think goes the distance. It's a fight that I think is super competitive. It's a fight that's in Canada, and Chris Curtis is minus 180. I just don't get it personally. So it's a fight that I'm not too interested in from a betting perspective, but I mean, this line just keeps getting wider and wider, it seems. Weezy, help me out. Why is Chris Curtis minus 180? Are people thinking he's going to knock out Barriault? I'm not so sure. I think it's a close decision here, one way or another.
Styles make fights, and the reason I think people really like Curtis here is that because Marc-André Barriault is a pressure and volume fighter, right? So Chris Curtis is not that. Chris Curtis is somebody who's happy to actually kind of stay on the back foot, to set traps, to throw feints, to look to counter, and what he really does do well is is find, those openings as the fight goes on. He starts slow. He looks to counter. He looks at what his opponent is giving him, and then he kind of downloads that information and then finds that big knockout shot. And, he's done it with his hands, and he's also done it with a spinning hook kick on Dana White's Contender Series against Tom Ladd many, many years ago. This guy, he just has a way of figuring out those striking exchanges and finding the big shot. And the more aggressive his opponent is, the easier it is for him to find that shot. It was fights like the Hermansson fight, where Hermansson danced around the outside of the cage and used his length advantage and never really got into the pocket with him, that we saw Chris Curtis look confused for the first time. I mean, Chris Curtis is the action man. He wants action, but he kind of needs his opponent to bring him what he needs in order to find those big knockouts. Chris Curtis has 17 wins by knockout in his career, and he's got 1 win by submission. He's a master of going out there and losing the minutes until he finds your weak spot, your ability to leave yourself in a bad predicament and be there to be countered by something that he's setting up and drawing you into. And I feel like Barriault, a guy with 60% striking defense, which is solid, it's right around the meaty part of the curve there, who throws 14.62 distance strike attempts per minute and who moves forward, is going to provide those openings for Chris Curtis. And that's how I think a lot of people are breaking this fight down. But remember that Curtis isn't really a minute winner at distance striking range. He lands 5.1, but absorbs 6.87. He throws 11.28, Brady, but his opponents throw 14.64. He's got a negative distance striking differential. He's got 53% striking defense, so he's also there to be hit, which is a little bit concerning. But he's never been knocked down, and he's got 3 knockdowns at the UFC level. And on those 3 knockdowns, he's got 3 UFC wins by knockout. So, yeah, and he's 1-2 in decisions. So we know what Chris Curtis is doing here. If he's winning this fight, I don't think he's winning it by decision, Brady. Because I think, like you say, Barriault is going to be doing more. Barriault is going to be throwing more. The question is he going to find Barriault's chin? Is he going to find the off button, find the liver, find something that leaves this dude sleeping? Well, that's a kind of a tall order, because Barriault's only been knocked out once in 23 professional fights and 11 UFC fights. So this is a fascinating fight, man. The numbers tell us a lot about the stylistic components of this fight. And I feel like if you're betting Chris Curtis on Saturday, you'd get a lot more value by betting him by knockout than you would by getting the money line, because I don't know if he's going to win these minutes on the feet.
And even if he does, what are the Canadian judges going to say?
Yeah, that's very true too.
Everything that lands on the Barriault side, the crowd's going to be going crazy. And so I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. I think if Chris Curtis does look minus 180, it's a knockout. But I don't know. Marc-André Barriault is tough to knock. Like, this guy has to absorb. How many strikes have this guy absorbed, Marc-André? It's had to have been a ton.
It's 646 in the UFC, and 453 of them have been distance strikes. And he's only been knocked down once in 11 fights. 453 distance strikes absorbed, 123 minutes in the cage, and it was Cheaty.
Yeah,
who's a huge middleweight. Chris Curtis is a precise striking welterweight.
Yeah. Yeah, this line, I don't know. This line doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Maybe Curtis does knock him out, but I don't think it's that likely of an outcome. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 140. The under 2.5 is plus 110. So it's kind of shaded to go the distance here. Any thoughts on the total for you?
I'd rather bet the over. I know it's a butt-clenching over with these guys' power. Both of them have got a good amount of power, but they're both extremely durable. And that's something I really like to count on when I'm betting overs is that, you know, I don't want to see these, you know, I know that Chris Curtis can knock out anyone. I know that Barriault can land a big shot, turn off somebody's lights, but these guys are both very durable. So I'd be much more comfortable betting the over just on the stylistic read of the fight and probably the numbers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like the over a decent amount, actually. Both these guys are next level tough, next level durable. I really don't really see a knockout on either side, but now we'll have to see. So I'm looking at the over potentially, and then like a Marc-André Barriault money line, depending on where this line goes as well. All right, we'll move on to. I'm picking a lot of dogs this card. Let's see. I'm taking 1, 2, 3 so far. So yeah, taking a lot
You
of
got
dogs.
Cachoeira.
No.
I know, come on, you're a big fan. I know that you're rooting for
I am a
her,
big
even if
fan.
you're betting against her, you know.
Well, I'm a big fan, but I don't know. I don't know about that one.
I like a couple too here, man. Like there's a lot more spots sticking out. I think some of the stylistic reads here are a little bit easier to read rather than, well, it's whoever lands the first big punch. You know, like in Hawes, you know, Ferreira, where, you know, I mean, sometimes it's hard to pick that. You know that Hawes can land a big one just like Ferreira here, but like this one, you know, and I think that there's some really nice stylistic narratives that are leading us to paths to where we can find some value this week.
Yep. 100%. All right. We'll move on to the next fight then. We have Brad Katona going against Garrett Armfield. We got Brad Katona, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. Armfield, 27 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. We got Armfield 5 years younger, same height, and we got Armfield with a 6-inch reach advantage. Brad Katona, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He went out there and beat Cody Gibson and won the Ultimate Fighter for the second time. We'll talk more about that fight. And then as far as Garrett Armfield, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Makes his debut on short notice against David Onama, tough ask, and he got submitted in the second round. And then he beats Toshiyami Kazama by first round knockout there. So, yeah, I mean, you know, Brad Katona is a guy that, you know, he's not the most exciting fighter in the world. You take a look at a lot of his matchups, they pretty much all go to decision. But in his Cody Gibson fight, I mean, I don't know what changed, but Brad Katona went out there, and it was personally one of my favorite fights of the year. That Cody Gibson fight was incredible, a back and forth war where both guys showed a ton of toughness. And that fight actually, I think, got Cody Gibson signed off of a loss, and rightfully so. That fight was amazing. But if you go back and look at pretty much every other Katona fight, he's going out there, he's pushing guys against the cage, he's taking them down. And I was looking through Katona's record on the Ultimate Fighter the first time around. He has some really good wins. He went out there, he beat Bryce Mitchell. He beat somebody else that was pretty good as well. Like, this guy has really good wins outside of, you know, being in the UFC. And in the UFC, his 2 losses come against Merab Dvalishvili. No shame there. And then also Hunter Azure, another wrestler. So, yeah, he beat Kyler Phillips as well on the Ultimate Fighter. So I think, you know, this guy is a very good fighter. Not, like I said, not the most exciting fighter. And I don't expect him to go out there and stand and bang with Armfield this time around. I kind of think he's going to get back to his wrestling a little bit here, which has given Armfield problems. Armfield has 3 losses. All 3 of them are due to him getting taken down and either subbed or controlled. So I think that's kind of why Katona's the favorite there. But yeah, if Katona does go out there and stand and bang with Armfield, he could potentially lose because Armfield's striking is very good, has a ton of power. I love the striking of Armfield. I just worry about, you know, the ground game of Armfield there. So yeah, should be an interesting fight. But I kind of lean Katona to win a decision, get back to his roots here a little bit. I don't think he's gonna go out there and try to put on a fight of the night type war with this guy like he did against Gibson. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, you know, this is a big step up for Garrett Armfield here. I mean, other than the Onama fight, you know, I mean, this guy's been fighting a lot lower level competition, while Katona, between the first stint with the UFC and the Ultimate Fighter House, where he had some, you know, really good competition, then, you know, once you have that UFC resume, now you're fighting at the highest level of the regional scene. And he was down there in Brave fighting a lot of those, you know, Russian wrestlers and stuff and doing really well against them. So I think Katona, I mean, obviously more experienced. Obviously, he's fought the better brand of competition. I think that he's a guy that we can count on to win minutes in the grappling exchanges, be the more efficient guy. And he's a very smart fighter, Brady. This guy doesn't let his opponents dictate the pace of the fight. He does that. And that's how you go out there and beat guys like Bryce Mitchell and Kyler Phillips and that impressive performance against Cody Gibson, and then he's got a lot of good wins in Brave there too. So this guy Katona is fighting 5-round fights a lot of these cases too. Really well coached, really good fight IQ. And I don't think he's going to give Garrett the fight that he wants. I think he's going to maybe make this one a little bit less exciting than what that Cody Gibson fight was. But for those of you guys who didn't watch that season of The Ultimate Fighter, it was pretty wild because the last episode, Brady, when these guys all knew that they had, that they were going to the finals, who they were going to fight, Brad Katona was pissing off a lot of people in the house. They didn't like him. They found him annoying. Even Chandler, the coaches, they were like, God, this guy's a fucking diva. He's a pain in the ass. And Katona is in the kitchen with Cody Gibson, and they know that they're going to fight each other. And Cody's like just angry with Brad, like everybody in the house seemed to be. And he just starts going off on him, Brady, telling him, you're a bum. You've never been in an exciting fight. That's why you got cut from the UFC with a winning record, because nobody cares about you. People fall asleep when they watch your fights. You avoid action at all costs, and you're not even likable as a human being. You're just a bum. I can't wait to kick your ass. What happened? Dude, Katona came out there looking like fucking JSP or Billy Q. I mean, it was nothing but dude, he landed 160 significant strikes in that fight. I mean, it was an all action, all excitement war. So it was really interesting to see the season end on that note, with Cody basically calling Katona out for being the fighter that he had kind of been, and then Katona just showing a completely different side of himself and winning a phenomenal performance there. I like Brad Katona here. I'm worried Armfield can land a big shot, and I think Armfield's stand-up is phenomenal. Tons of volume, good power, good pressure, a good chin. So I think that he's going to be definitely not out of his depth here on the feet. I worry that Garrett's going to get taken down and controlled and lose a ton of minutes to the smarter, more experienced fighter that's fought the better brand of competition.
Yeah, I think the path's certainly there for Katona. I think this guy's super underrated because, like you said, is he the most exciting fighter outside of his last fight? No, not at all. But he's very good. He's very smart as well. And I think he'll probably fight smart here. Katona minus 175, Armfield plus 150. The over is minus 175. The under is plus 145. I kind of feel like if Armfield wins as a knockout, Katona, I obviously lean decision. Maybe he could sub Armfield. How many submission wins does Katona have? Probably not many.
3 of them. But dude, Katona's never been finished, dude. Not once. So I kind of like the over here because Katona is certainly not a finisher, and Armfield wins almost exclusively by finish. But this guy Katona is never getting finished, and look at who he's fought. So I think it's a tough spot for Garrett Armfield here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I like Katona here. I'm not sure I'm going to attack this fight yet. He opened up minus 155. So the line hasn't really changed much. So we'll see. All right. Moving on to the next fight. By the way, weren't we supposed to have on this card the Dominic Reyes, Carlos Ulberg? What happened?
Yeah, that was going to be on this card. And I think we were also supposed to have another fight that I remember I inputted the stats for, and then I found out after I inputted the stats that the fight was already canceled. I think Prochaska was supposed to fight Blachowicz or something, or not Prochaska. It was Rakic.
Yeah,
Rakic Black. We lost that fight too.
Oh wow, those are 2 amazing fights.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who are saying it seems a little bit weak on the pay-per-view side, that's what happened. They really did have bigger plans for this card, but a couple of injuries forced off a couple of really big fights.
Yeah, Ulberg must have been really injured to have to pull out against Dominic Reyes at this point.
Yeah.
Something had been really
exactly.
wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Reyes posting pictures of him training with a bunch of bums like Bandera and like, it's like room full of killers. Like, oh God, if you think those guys are killers, wait until you see what Ulberg does to you at distance, So
I saw that. I saw that picture. Room full of killers, and you see Jared Bandera in the picture. It was amazing. And Katona has wins over Bryce Mitchell, Kyler Phillips, and Timur Valiev, which I love that Valiev. That Valiev's good as well. All 3 of those guys are really good. So really good wins.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep moving on. Then we have Arnold Allen going against Movsar Evloev. We got Arnold Allen, 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Evloev, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Same age there. Arnold Allen with a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Arnold Allen 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Nick Lentz. Decision win against Sodiq Yusuff. Knockout win against Dan Hooker. Knockout win against Calvin Kattar. And then a decision loss to Max Holloway. As far as Movsar Evloev, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's undefeated, 17-0. Decision win against Mike Grundy. Split decision win against Nick Lentz, decision win against Hakeem Dawodu, decision win against Dan Ige, and then a decision win against Diego Lopez as well. And that was a fun fight also. So yeah, we have a striker versus grappler matchup here where Evloev's going to be looking to get the fight down to the mat. That's what he's done. He has 33 takedowns completed in the UFC and only 7, I believe, UFC fights, which is really good. This guy's landing, I think, like 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then you have Arnold Allen, who's an incredible striker. I love the striking of Arnold Allen. I think he has underrated power as well. I don't like the volume of Arnold Allen, but still very good volume or very good striker nonetheless. So Weezy, it's a fight where I guess it comes down to who's going to get their way. If Arnold Allen's able to stuff takedowns here, could potentially win minutes / moments on the feet. But if Evloev's able to get his game plan going, which would be getting the fight down on the mat, winning minutes on the ground, he'll probably take home another decision win, which he does like doing. Weezy, really good fight here. Probably one of the highest level fights on the entire card. What are your thoughts on this one here?
Phenomenal fight. And, you know, Arnold Allen, I think one of the great things about this fight is that we've got a lot of tape on Arnold Allen against good wrestlers, really good ones. Mads Burnell, Makwan Amirkhani, Alan Omer. You can go back to a number of this guy's fights. I mean, shit, Nick Lentz, you know, this guy's fought wrestlers and went out there and he's beating them. Now, but what you don't really see is him like flat out just stuffing takedowns. You know, he gets taken down and then gets back up, but these guys are able to get him down. He would have lost that Mads Burnell fight if he didn't get that guillotine late in that fight because he was losing the minutes of that fight. And frankly, at distance striking range, right? With Evloev having a 2-inch reach advantage here, I kind of feel like Arnold Allen, and this might sound harsh, but I kind of feel like this fight for him comes down to whether or not he can win moments at distance striking range here. Because I mean, Evloev, like you said, 33 takedowns in 7 fights, and he gets his takedown attempts at a 50% clip. He's been taken down a few times, but he's out controlling his opponents 41% to 5%. He's winning 88% of the grappling exchanges in his fights, and 47% of his cage time is taking place in these grappling exchanges. And guess what, Brady? At distance striking range, Movsar's good. He's high volume. He's accurate. He's extremely defensive responsible. He always keeps his hands up and he always moves his head and moves laterally. He's got good footwork. He's kind of got an unorthodox cadence to his striking, but he's always throwing in combination. So while Arnold Allen throws 10.87 distance strike attempts per minute, Evloev is throwing 14.5. Evloev is slightly more accurate. Evloev has a positive 1.87 distance striking differential compared to 0.73 for Allen. Like you go back, for instance, and you watch that Sodiq Yusuff fight, right, Brady? He's losing that fight, but he wins moments in 2 of the 3 rounds and winds up getting that decision win in that fight. But he got outstruck at range, you know? So I kind of feel like Movsar wins this fight unless Allen lands spectacularly hard shots in 2 of these 3 rounds, drops him, or finishes him. Because I just don't see him winning minutes here.
Yeah, and Evloev's an incredible minute winner. Incredible.
He doesn't need to finish anybody. I mean, this guy's 7-0 in the UFC, and he's finished exactly nobody. 7-0 in the UFC in decisions. 10-0 in his career in decisions.
Yeah, I don't think he's finishing Allen. I'd be shocked if he did. I'd be shocked.
He'd be the first to do it, Brady. And look at that line of killers that Arnold Allen has fought. Nobody's ever finished this young man. And Movsar Evloev has never finished anybody in the UFC. And he's been in there against guys like Grundy, you know? I mean, if you're not finishing Mark Grundy, I don't think you're finishing Arnold Allen, dude. You know, so yeah, I mean, this one is going to decision. We've never seen Movsar finished either, you know, so whatever the fight goes it's going to be juice to the tits, and I think it fucking hits, dude. I think it's a parlay piece.
Yeah, Evloev's tough to finish him. So I've never seen him hurt. I've never seen him rocked. And then he also survived on the mat against Diego Lopez as well. I mean, he got out of some crazy submissions there. See, I think Arnold Allen, like you said, I think an Arnold Allen win is him dropping Evloev, him having a big moment in 2 out of the 3 rounds, or knocking out Evloev there. So yeah, I think Evloev, really good matchup for him, really tough matchup for Allen. Hence the line, Evloev minus 185, Arnold Allen plus 160. The over 2.5 is minus 325. I'd say Evloev by decision as a potential bet, but I have a feeling Evloev money line is going to be minus 185. Evloev by decision is going to be like minus 180. I have a
It's going to be minus 190, Brady. I hate to interrupt you. It's going to be I guarantee it. It's going to be a worse price than whatever the money line is. That's where Bet Online opens it this week. I'm saying it right now. You heard it here first. Your Uncle Weezy is calling out Bet Online, and he's predicting that it opens at a worse implied probability than the money line. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah, so I'm not even going to say Evloev decision because, I mean, it's going to be
the money line.
minus 150 at the best. That's best case scenario, minus 150. Yeah. So if I do bet, and on this fight, it probably will be that Evloev money line, and looks like it's moving a little bit as well. Currently minus 185. So I think we're kind of seeing the same. Evloev by decision, he's finishing nobody, and especially not Arnold Allen.
Yeah, this is such a high-level fight. It's hard to picture either of these guys getting finished. These guys are both phenomenal. They're both durable. I mean, we've seen Evloev eat some big shots. He keeps coming forward. So Evloev is durable. Allen is durable. They're both well-tested guys that have fought winning record opponents. The strength of schedule numbers, they favor Evloev just a little bit in the wins, but they're almost identical overall. So this is a great fight.
Bob bet the under in the Robertson-Viana fight minus 120. That's a good. You beat some line movement there, I think. That's not terrible. We got FanDuel in the building. What is up, FanDuel? You always give us a great price, FanDuel. You wait till Thursday or Friday, or sometimes even Saturday. But when you do get your lines out, they are always a good price. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. FanDuel is a great place to go for prop betting. They always have really juicy prop lines, man. So stand up, FanDuel. Good to see you hanging out here with us.
And I love when they randomly, it happens ever so often, they randomly open up the totals for a future card at minus 112, and they do it for every single fight. Yeah. It's like, how do you make that mistake? If they do it for like all 12 fights, minus 112 one way or another.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that a couple of times, and both times I've missed it and been like, what? Where did everybody get these lines? You know, and then it's like FanDuel opened them all early, and they were all opened at a pick 'em, you know, and you're like, oh my God. You know, it happens every once in a while. I'm not expecting that going forward, but if it happens, I'll be there to bet them.
Oh, I love when that happens. So shout out to FanDuel hanging out with us in the chat. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Mike Malott going against Neil Magny. We got Neil Magny, 36 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Mike Malott, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. Mike Malott is going to be 4 years younger. He's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage and a massive 7-inch reach disadvantage. Magny is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, subbed by Shavkat Rakhmonov. Submission win against Daniel Rodriguez. A submission loss to Gilbert Burns, a decision win against Philip Rowe, and then a decision loss to Ian Machado Gary. As far as Mike Malott, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had I think, contender series win. It was against Solomon Renfro, I think, or was it against Smitrisky? Yeah, I think it
was Smitrisky.
Yeah, Smitrisky, and then he did fight Solomon Renfro outside of the UFC, and he won that fight by submission. Renfro did fight on the contender series, though. He makes his debut against Mickey Gall, knocks him out in the first round, submits Johan Lioness in the first round, and then submits Adam Fugit in the second round. I love this fight. Mike Malott's a guy that there's this this unknown factor about him, because when Mike Malott fights, which is not a lot, he's very inactive and has been throughout his career. So he barely fights. And when he does fight, like the fights typically end within like a minute or two. So there's not a lot of footage there of Mike Malott, but what we do see when he does fight, this guy's good. I think this guy's very good. He has very good striking with a ton of power, and then his submission game's just top notch, incredible. We don't really know what his cardio is like. I've heard a couple of interviews where he says he has phenomenal cardio, just hasn't been able to show it off. I'm not sure, but it hasn't really needed it yet, because these fights have not been getting extended for Mike Malott really ever. He has been to decision once. And that was a draw, and that fight was like almost 10 years ago, probably. Mike Malott, he's going to be dangerous everywhere. I think it's a tough matchup for Neil Magny, hence the massive price tag here on Malott. But this will be a step up for Mike Malott. But I also feel like, he's getting Neil Magny at the right time. Neil Magny, 36 years old, has taken a ton of damage. That Ian Gary fight was just a terrible look. Neil Magny wasn't an ounce competitive in that fight. And Ian Gary could have finished Neil Magny like 70 times in that fight, decided not to. Of course, I had Gary inside the distance, which one of those bets where you're just, you want to break your TV, because he dropped Neil Magny with the first leg kick, but somehow in 15 minutes, I think Mike Malott kind of finishes what Ian Gary started here. Whether it's on the feet or on the mat, I think he can hurt Magny. I think Magny looks a little bit fragile out there lately. And then if this fight hits the mat, Magny's been submitted so many times in the UFC, and you do not want to go to the ground with Mike Malott. So I think it's a really good spot for Mike Malott. Again, hence the line. He's the second biggest favorite on the card, but I have a feeling by the time these fights start Saturday, he will surpass Jasmine and be the biggest favorite on the card. Give me Mike Malott. Minus 375. Looks like maybe missed the boat. He was sitting at minus 250 for a while. I was actually planning on maybe placing a bet on him there. Minus 365. I'm not so sure. I'm going to be looking at the Mike Malott finish props. I think he goes out there and does whatever he wants. I'm not sure whether it's a knockout or submission, though. I kind of lean sub, but I think it could be either. So yeah, give me violence here, and Mike Malott implementing that violence. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right, Brady? Because, in Neil Magny, we got a top 15 welterweight, a guy that's fought 31 times since the beginning of 2013. And he's won 21 of those 31 UFC fights that he's had since 2013. So this guy's an ultra veteran. He's one of the most active fighters. He's kind of like everything that Mike Malott is not, right? He's not a finisher, and Mike Malott is, right? Neil Magny is as active as they come, and Mike Malott literally has 12 professional fights in an almost 13-year professional career. This guy fights about once a year. Neil Magny has had more fights since the year 2020 than Mike Malott has had since he's been 19 years old. And that was 13 years ago, you guys. So, and with Magny, you got a guy who's literally fought everybody in the division. Look at those last four names from Malott: Adam Fugit, Johan Leoness, Mickey Gall, Shimon Smut-Risky, who was like 20 at the time that he fought him. So don't kid yourself. This is a massive step up in competition against one of the busiest, most active UFC fighters that has fought in a phenomenal level of competition, has a ton of great wins on his resume. But as many superlatives as you can come up with about Neil Magny and his UFC career, you could also say, here's what I think happened, Brady. It's a Canada card. Mike Malott is 32 years old. He needs to go now. If they're going to make this guy a top 15 fighter, right? It needs to happen now. So if I'm the UFC and I've got a card in Canada and I want to see the Canadian fans go nuts when Mike Malott gets a really good win that launches him to where the UFC wants him so they can start pitting him against some of their top fighters, I would say, as Sean Shelby and with Dana White and Mick Maynard, who can we feed to Mike Malott that's already in the top 15 that he gets a good win against here in Canada and propels him to the top 15? And that the easiest name would be a guy who gets submitted like it's his job. A guy who, who's not really a finisher in his own right. A guy who's not really dropping you or doesn't have this phenomenal submission game that he's just a guy that kind of wins minutes and outfights guys that are not, they don't bring 15 minutes worth of cardio and game plan and heart, because Magny has all that. He's got heart. To fight 31 times since 21-13, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm guessing that nobody has fought at that volume. That right there speaks volumes about what Mike Malott is getting into on Saturday. Neil Magny is not a joke. Neil Magny is not an easy win for anybody, but this probably is the guy that if I were, tasked with, hey, let's find Mike Malott a really big, meaningful win in front of a home crowd on Saturday here in Canada, I'd be picking out Neil Magny's name, because he's been submitted 5 times in 10 UFC losses, while Malott has got a phenomenal and opportunistic submission game. And a guy who's got a 100% finish rate like Mike Malott going up against a guy who's been finished in 7 of his 10 UFC losses, one of those decision losses going to Ian Gary, who just played with his food for 15 minutes. When he runs against high-level competition who are better than him, who have the kind of cardio to match the output and the pace that Magny puts on, he winds up being the one getting finished. So I like Mike Malott. I like Malott by submission here, and I think I'll be one of 100% of all the other cappers who share that opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think it makes me special, Brady, that I'm picking Malott by sub here.
It's a hot take, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So Magny has how many UFC losses? 10, right?
10.
And 7 of them finished inside this, or 8? 7 or 8?
7 of them.
7
of them, and one of them was Gary. That wasn't a finish. That probably could have easily been a finish had he just stepped on the gas at any point.
A little bit, yeah.
So.
Yeah. 100%. Mike Malott, like I said, this line is getting just crushed. It looks like yesterday. I looked at it yesterday. It was like minus 250. Now he's minus 365. Like that's a significant move in such short time. The over under, I don't get this. Bet Online lately has been opening just random fights at 1.5 for no reason. This feels like it should be set at 1.5, considering Mike Malott barely has 7.5 minutes of fight time in the UFC. But yeah, I think the under, even 1.5 would be something I would look at, but it's 2.5 right now for some reason, which I think hits, but it's minus 210 now.
Yeah. I gotta believe that this thing, that could be a parlay piece. It's hard to picture this fight going over 2.5 rounds, dude. It's a Mike Malott fight.
If it does, Magny probably wins.
Yeah, that could certainly be a possibility, because what Mike Malott looks like in round 2 and round 3, you'd have to go back to footage from 2014 when he was fighting in Bellator in order to find out what that looks like. So we got to be honest with ourselves that we don't know what that looks like. That's an unknown.
Yeah.
However, Neil Magny in round 2 and round 3 is about as known a quantity as you're going to get in the UFC. The guy's got 31 UFC fights. So we're going to find out a little bit about Malott, but yeah, 12 professional fights, Brady, 40 minutes of cage time. That's it.
Yeah. It's crazy. I might look at Mike Malott, like we did with Waldo Cortez Acosta. Hopefully it comes through this time, but Mike Malott to win in round 1 or round 2 could be interesting. And hopefully he doesn't do the salsa. What if he does the salsa dance first thing? Then we know it's not hitting. But as long as he does not do the salsa dance, I feel like Mike Malott can get him out of there within 10 minutes. Hard to see Magny lasting 10 minutes with this version of Mike Malott.
Yeah, I'm confident, Brady. I'm very confident in saying that a Canadian kid that grew up playing hockey does not know how to salsa dance for shit. And I couldn't be happier, because, now I consider anybody that can do the salsa as a major negative, in the UFC after Waldo Cortez. How ass is Waldo Cortez Acosta ass is what I'm going to call him from now on. Waldo Cortez Acosta ass.
He's so ass.
How ass, that ass, ladies and gentlemen. That ass.
Oh, so as long as Mike Malott's not dancing and actually fighting, I think we're going to hit a Mike Malott inside the distance prop. Unlike we did with the freaking Acosta fight. I was looking at Mike Malott. So 10 wins for Mike Malott. 9 of them come in the first round. and 1 comes in the second, which was his last fight. All 10 wins under 1.5 rounds for Mike Malott. All 10.
Yeah. The guy fights like he's triple parked and has got dinner reservations, man. It's wild. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. How good is Don'Tale Mayes? Are we underrating Don'Tale Mayes?
Yeah, I'm hearing talk about Gon Mayes, the rematch. They're like, hey, if you're knocking out Arlovsky, we're giving you Cyril Gane next. Yeah, I think you're going to avenge that loss. When Don'Tale Mayes got heel hooked by a kickboxer in the 3rd round the first time they fought. Yes, that's
yes.
You did not read that wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Don'Tale Mayes got heel hooked by a guy who never put on a gi in his life.
Good times. Great times. Great times. All right, Weezy. So next we have a title fight. We got Raquel Pennington going against Mayra Bueno Silva. We got Raquel Pennington, 35 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. Mayra Bueno Silva, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Silva, 3 years younger, 1-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Pennington 5-0 in her last 5 fights, has been on a pretty good run here as of late. Decision win against Marion Renault. Pani Kanzad submitted Macy Chiazon, won a decision against Aspen Ladd, and then a decision against Ketlin Vieira. As far as Mayra Bueno Silva, she is 3-1 and 1 no contest in her last 5 fights. She lost to Manon Fiorot by decision, beat Yanan Wu, which, by the way, is she affiliated with the Wu-Tang Clan or no? We figured that out yet?
No, dude. You know, and I always got to apologize, Brady, because I had some sources that indicated that she was, and then I said it on my programs. And yeah, she is not affiliated with the Wu-Tang Clan. And all you got to do is take one look at her UFC record to realize that.
Okay,
what,
fair.
1-6? Come on.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Terrible.
So she's not. Okay, just confirming for everybody that was curious. She submitted Stephanie Egger, submitted Lena Landsberg, and then she had the no contest over Holly Holm, where she submitted her, and then she popped for something. I'm not sure what it was, but
it was
you know what it was?
It was prescription ADD medication. So she takes Adderall, Brady.
Okay.
And what she does is she stops taking the Adderall for a couple of weeks. There's a specific time that she stops taking it when she's in a fight camp, so that it won't show up in her drug tests. But there was something screwed up, and then she tested positive for a small amount of it, but it wasn't anything that was going to go out there and enhance her performance against Holly Holm. I think that's important to note.
Yeah, why would they no contest that? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Because, USADA has Adderall is like, hey, you can't be taking this in camp. So she tested positive for it. So it's just the rules, it doesn't make much sense. And it wasn't like she cheated,
Mm-hmm. 100%. So yeah, I mean, Mayra Bueno Silva is one of these fighters who just, for me, she always finds a way to win. Like, she's fun to watch, actually. She comes forward, brings a lot of pressure, she brings a lot of volume, she's powerful. But what I like most about Mayra Bueno Silva is something she doesn't really use, and that's her grappling. She doesn't really go for takedowns, and that's kind of the big thing with her. It's always been, she's so good on the ground. She has so many submissions, but when she is getting these submissions, because she's actually getting taken down, she has a lot of submission wins off her back. And I was always saying to myself, I would love to see her go out there and proactively, try to get fights down to the mat. And then she did it against Lena Landsberg. And how easy did she make that look? She went out there, submitted Lena Landsberg, which I think that was Landsberg's first submission loss. So, yeah, I would like to see Silva wrestle a lot more. She has 2 takedowns completed in 9 UFC fights, but I think her grappling is one of my favorite parts of her game. Multiple submissions in the UFC. I think she has like a 70 or 80% submission rate even in Mayra Bueno Silva. So, yeah, I don't know. This is a title fight that I'm not crazy about, but I know you're a pretty big fan of Mayra Bueno Silva, Weezy, so I'll let you take it away here.
She's made a fan out of me, Brady, because, in the past, we gave Mayra Bueno Silva a lot of shit, like that Manon Fiorot fight where she's getting her face boxed off and she's just standing there with her arms wide open. It's like, bitch, try a takedown. Why don't you just try the takedown? But she wouldn't. But, styles make fights. And right now, Mayra Bueno Silva, I mean, I don't see Raquel winning this fight. Because what Mayra does so well is just find that moment whenever it comes, whenever it's presented. And if you go to the ground with this girl at all, you're playing defense. I don't care if you're on top. I don't care if you're on the bottom. You are defending for your life. And Mayra Bueno Silva's pre-Landsberg game reminded me, Brady, a lot of she was like the female Joelle Alvarez, right? Super dangerous submissions, but never trying to take her opponents down. She counts on her pressure, kind of getting to her opponents, and then her opponents hating being marched down, hating being backed up to the cage, start reactively wrestling. They give Mayra what she wants because she doesn't really do her best work from on top. It's when you're in Mayra Bueno Silva's guard that there's arm bars, triangles, heel hooks, sweep attempts. She's just hyper aggressive with her submission attempts, and she's very aggressive with her striking style, but she needs to throw more volume. But as long as she's pressuring, I don't really care if she's throwing the volume. I just want her closing the distance here. And look at Raquel Pennington's UFC career, Brady. This is a woman who only spends 53% of her distance time at distance striking range, which means this thing's going to be in the clinch. This thing's going to be on the ground. You know, I don't see this fight taking place at distance striking range for 60, 70, 80% of the fight. I see this being in the clinch. I see this being on the ground. And we just saw Mayra finally start to offensively wrestle, which I think is a great new wrinkle to her game here. I think Mayra submits her at some point here. First round, second round, third round. I think that this is her belt. I don't think there's anybody in the division right now at all that is going to give Mayra Bueno Silva any problems here. I max bet Mayra Bueno Silva when she was announced to fight Miesha Tate, you know, and Miesha Tate right now is about as good as Raquel Pennington. So why wouldn't I lay the wood here again on Mayra Bueno Silva? I think that she's just so much more dangerous. I think that the things that she's going to be doing in this fight, Brady, she's going to be the aggressor. She's going to be the one with the good optics for the judges here. Pennington's fantastic at winning minutes in the clinch. That's what she does really well. But I could see Mayra just getting the head and either getting that Muay Thai plum or just jumping guard. And then she's going to be playing defense the entire time that she's in Mayra Bueno Silva's guard. And if Mayra Bueno Silva gets on top, I think she'll win minutes as well as finding that moment, which eventually will come because her submission game is frankly elite right now. I mean, like outside of some of these super grapplers at 115, there's no woman right now that's as dangerous with her submission attempts as Mayra Bueno Silva. I mean, you wind up in that arm bar, you're probably going to the hospital. Something's probably breaking. Did you see Stephanie Egger complain when the judge screamed at the referee, stop the fight from cage side, because that's how terrifying Mayra Bueno Silva's arm bars are?
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. But I think instead of the money line, I would look at the inside the distance for Silva. She's so dangerous. 80% finish rate for Mayra Bueno Silva. Maybe in the submission prop as well, but I might just take inside the distance. Probably decent plus money. Like this fight is, it looks like about a pick 'em to go the distance. Over 4.5 minus 125. Under 4.5 minus 105. Yeah, I could see a Silva finish here.
I could definitely see a Silva finish. I mean, that's what she does, Brady. And if this fight does go to decision, Mayra Bueno Silva in UFC decisions is 1 win, 2 losses, and 1 draw, while Pennington's 9-4. And Pennington has fought the better brand of competition.
Yeah.
So, we got to, I think if you're going to bet Silva, better to win by submission or better to win inside the distance, because if it does go the full 5, it might be really close.
Yeah. No,
because that means that Mayra Bueno Silva didn't find that moment, and Mayra is not the best minute winner.
True. So I think that's how I'm going to attack it. Inside the distance for Bueno Silva. Get it to plus money. Good plus money. I don't hate that at all. I'm with you. I like her. I don't like her as much as you do, but I would like to see her wrestle a lot more. But she's fun to watch. I mean, I remember that Montana De La Rosa, the draw. That fight was fun, man. I mean, it showed how dangerous she is in the clinch.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because she might be able to match as good as Rocky is in the clinch. Mayra is so mean there. She's mean everywhere. She's mean.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
100%. There's not a lot of mean fighters out there, right? But she's one of them.
She's one of them, man. That's for sure.
She's not going to salsa dance out there.
Maybe when she wins.
Yes.
Not until then, you know?
Yeah. Shout the salsa boy. Salsa.
And if she's not going to salsa, she's from Brazil. She's going to samba, my friend, and it's probably going to look pretty good, you know?
Heck yeah. All right. So, yeah, we're both on Silva, preferably into the distance, preferably snatching an arm as well. That armbar is sick. All right. So we went through all the fights besides the main event. Is now time to talk about a very good main event. If you guys have not already, be sure to like the video, subscribe. Over 100 here, which is awesome. There's football going on, a big game tonight, Rams, Lions. So I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying that. A lot of people will catch the replay, but appreciate every single one of you that are hanging out with us on a Sunday. We got the main event, Sean Strickland, Dricus Du Plessis. We got Sean Strickland, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. Dricus Du Plessis, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. We got Dricus 2 years younger, same height and a same reach there. We got Sean Strickland, who was 3-2 in his last 5 fights, knocked out against Alex Pereira, lost a decision to Jared Cannonier, won a decision against Nasruddin Imavov, knocked out Abus Magomedov, and then won a decision against Israel Adesanya. As far as Dricus Du Plessis, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, knockout win against Officer Trevin Giles, decision win against Brad Tavares, submission win against Darren Till, knockout win against Derek Brunson, and then a knockout win against Robert Whittaker. So I was never really that sold on Dricus like a lot of people were. You look at his kind of strength of schedule thus far, Officer Trevin Giles, Brad Tavares, Darren Till, Derek Brunson, those wins or whatever. I mean, but the Robert Whittaker win, that's an incredible win. Not only beating Robert Whittaker, but going out there and in the way he beat him at the end of the first round, took him down, beat the crap out of him, bloodied up Robert Whittaker, and then just knocked him out brutally in the second. Like that win kind of skyrocketed my thoughts and opinions on Dricus Du Plessis. I mean, that win's no joke whatsoever, and he absolutely deserves this title shot. This is a great fight here. I mean, Sean Strickland upsetting Israel Adesanya was probably the best moment of 2023. I went back and watched that fight. I got like chills watching Sean Strickland in that 5th round, marching down Israel Adesanya, like yelling at him, screaming at him, just marching him down. That was an incredible performance, an incredible upset, massive upset. Because I think Adesanya was like minus 400 or something in that fight. So, yeah, this is a great fight here. 2 guys that I really like. I'm really looking forward to this main event. I'm really looking forward to the press conference. And Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here? It's going to be awesome, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so the last time we talked about Strickland was for that Adesanya fight. And I remember saying, like, Sean, you know, this is your chance. This is your chance, but you got to take this seriously. And if you don't wrestle Israel Adesanya, you're not taking this seriously. And what does he do? He does not wrestle the best striker probably one of the best strikers in the history of the sport, and beats him at his own game, using pressure, using a very good Muay Thai stance, very light on that lead leg, which he knows that's how Adesanya likes to set up all of his strikes, is by working that lead leg. And Strickland, with that Extreme Couture game plan with Eric Nixick in his corner, came out and fought a technically perfect fight and outstruck one of the best strikers to ever get in the cage in the history of the sport. Now he's coming off of that performance, and he gets Dricus Du Plessis, who is the complete opposite of what Israel Adesanya is. Adesanya is a technically perfect, minute-winning kickboxer who finds, with that precision and timing and technique, he finds that big strike occasionally where he does finish fights. But really, you worry about, is he winning minutes? And now you go to a complete madman like Dricus Du Plessis, who has 22 professional fights, and only one of those 22 fights has went the distance. And it was a fight where he beat 7 shades of shit out of Brad Tavares for the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and the fight probably should have been stopped a number of different times. So you go talk about, a tough ask for Sean Strickland, because you go from a completely different opponent in Adesanya now to just a completely, the stylistic components of this matchup are on the opposite side of the spectrum. Now you got a guy who needs to finish fights in order to win. Now you got a guy who's not technical at all. He just goes. When Dricus goes, he throws an 8-punch combination. There's no way to be technical like that. You have to be constantly circling. And he blasts. It looks like he's about to die from exhaustion. Then he backs up, he rests, and then he does it again. And then he looks more tired the next time, but he keeps coming with that. So the question is will Strickland's pressure work on Du Plessis? What do you think, Brady? Because it's hard to pressure a guy that blasts forward in bursts like Du Plessis does.
I kind of feel like this fight is going to be like a car crash, and the reason being is because it's a Dricus fight, man. This guy has 22 fights, 22 car crashes, right? Like 21 of his 22 fights have went the distance, and like you said, the Tavares fight, I mean, it could have been stopped on a couple different occasions there. I don't know. I mean, it's closely lined. I kind of see it, and somebody in the chat, put out a same game parlay where they said same game parlay Strickland with the over or same game parlay Dricus with the under. And that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I think if Dricus wins, it's probably him catching Sean Strickland, whether that be on the feet, whether that be him getting him down to the mat and subbing him. And if Strickland wins, I kind of see him breaking down Du Plessis, winning down the stretch. That's kind of how I'm going to look at it. The total is kind of interesting here for me. It's set at 2.5, right? Am I looking at the right thing? Let's see.
Let me look.
Gonna double check. 2.5. I don't even see it. Do you see it? Yeah, there it is.
1.5. It's
1.5. Oh, okay.
And the over is minus 225 and the under 1.5 plus 185. Let me give you some numbers here, Brady, because Du Plessis is not a guy that likes to go over.
That is true.
So,
wow.
In Du Plessis' 6 UFC fights, 3 have went under 1.5 rounds, 4 have went under 2.5 rounds, and 5 of 6 have finished inside the distance. But nothing, guess what? Only 3 of 14 Strickland fights have finished in round 1, and only 1 of 6 of Du Plessis' fights have finished in round 1. Yeah. So the over is just something that, especially with it being a 5-round fight, you will see slow first rounds a lot of the time in those fights. It's just something that happens. People are afraid of getting tired, afraid of gassing out, afraid of emptying their tank too early. So, but it is a Du Plessis fight. He might just force. He might force that kind of fight. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be too strong one way or another about the over here. And I see this as being kind of like a clash of styles, and it's not going to be anything like the Adesanya fight.
Yeah, I'm shocked they put it at 1.5. Like, it's a 5-round fight. I get it's a Dricus fight, but 2.5 makes a lot more sense to me. So yeah, I mean, I would, I guess, lean over. I guess, I don't know, minus 225. No, thank you. I'll be looking at maybe Dricus early props or Sean Strickland late props. Could be interesting. I was also looking at Sean Strickland late props for the Albus fight. I didn't get to him, but I was thinking maybe Sean Strickland 3, 4, and 5. He knocked him out like late second. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to attack this fight yet. I hate the total where it's at though. That's 1.5. No, thank you. 2.5 or 3.5. I might take a look at though. What are your thoughts on some other props sticking out, or even like a money line? I don't really love a money line. I think it should be a closely lined fight here. Any thoughts on anything else?
Yeah, like you said, I think we got to wait and see where the 2.5 opens. The fight doesn't start round 4. I think those, because we're getting plus on the under 1.5, that might be a very bettable line. And look, this is one of these type of fights where I could see Sean Strickland getting an early knockout too. I mean, it's not like Dricus is a defensive master, you guys. I mean, this guy he does have 56% distance striking defense. I mean, that's below average for the division. Sean's a damn good striker. I mean, all the guy does is spar. So whenever, you're in a fight with Sean Strickland, you're the one that's less experienced sparring. He's comfortable there. He walked down Alex Pereira. Had no problem with just standing in the pocket with that dude.
I mean,
That really was something else.
That was something else.
Dude. I had to buy a new phone after that night. Now, I picked Strickland to beat him, and I was just like, and that's why I was like, for the last fight, I was like, come on, Sean, if you can wrestle, please, for the love of God, act like you want this belt and make this uncomfortable. What did he do? No, I'm just going to outstrike him, Weezy, because you don't know how fucking good I am. And I was dead wrong. I didn't think he had any chance of being a pressuring striker, giving Adesanya what he wants. I thought he would just walk on to something. He didn't walk on to anything. He looked phenomenal.
Yep, that was crazy. That was one of the best moments of all of last year, that Strickland fight. But yeah, we did it. Went a little bit long, but we had some great fights to talk about. I think this is a great card overall. Any final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this is a really fun one, and I'm looking forward to seeing how all the Canadians perform in front of their home crowd. I'll be looking to lean that way because the Canadians been white hot in Canada. They like standing up for their own country and showing that they got a great mixed martial arts scene up there. So I'm really looking forward to this card. There are some really fun fights. I'm looking for MBS, Mayra Bueno Silva, to have a belt around her waist at the end of the night on Saturday. And I have no idea who's winning this Strickland Du Plessis fight. These guys are so well matched, and it's such an intriguing clash of styles. I can't wait to dig even further deeper into this card because there's a lot of great stylistic matchups on this one.
I think the fans are going to win the main event. I think the fans are going to win.
Yeah. And I mean, everything leading up to it, because Sean Strickland is the top press conference guy in the UFC. He's better than Conor McGregor now.
He has
Conor McGregor doesn't really even fight, anymore. But I think he's kind of like taking over, like being that draw before the fight even happens because of the shit that comes out of his mouth. It's hilarious.
He's very edgy, Sean Strickland.
Very edgy, just like our guy Lou Sassoli.
Sassoli, yes, Lou Sassoli. Is Sassoli? Is he French? Lou Sassoli?
I think that's Italian, but it could also be French. I guess they all have a Latin-based language, my friend. The French and the Italians, they share a base, when it comes to their languages, the Romance languages, if you will.
Fair enough, man. All right, so, Weezy, any special plans for this card, or is it the same just a tip and some Ask Weezy?
Yep, just a tip and Ask Weezy. I don't have any guest spots planned for this week, so I've got a lot of work to do behind the scenes. But yeah, look for me as usual Tuesday night on my channel, 10 o'clock Central Time for a full card breakdown. Wednesday night on my channel, 10 o'clock Central Time for Ask Weezy. And then we're going to do the DFS show like we always do right here on Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock Central Time with myself, Brady, Gordo, and Monk, giving you the best DFS plays for the week. And as always, let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 297. Pub Sports Radio, stand up.
Let's do it. I'll be getting up my full card breakdown tomorrow. I have all 12 fights taped. Just need to record, edit, and get it out. I just did a main event prediction as well, and then I'll be getting out some content throughout the week also. So yeah, looking forward to this card. This card's phenomenal. And unlike last week, like where nothing was sticking out, Weezy, this week a ton of stuff is sticking out. Some props, some money lines, so on and so forth. So really looking forward to this card as a whole. All right, guys, best of luck on your way out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Like the video. We appreciate it all. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks back on Pub Sports Radio for another version of Stat Diggers there. Best of luck, guys. We'll see you later.